Yo, Sam, you see this video? We're not rival anymore, we're Ghost. That means no more curse.
There's no more curse? I guess that actually means I can go back to back.
Wait, did you say no more curse?
Yeah, Ben, there's no more curse, we're Ghost now.
Yeah, lucky number 7. Here we go.
Dude, what's his deal?
I don't know, do you think quarantine's getting to him?
No, I think it's because he never won Worlds.
Couldn't be us.
I'm finally gonna be able to win. I'm gonna call me mum.
Hello and welcome, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, to your Saturday dose of competitive SMITE. My name is Gormizer, and we are about to jump into what is going to be an interesting Saturday. But along for the ride, at least through this first set with me, is none other than the illustrious Ryan Agro Bailey. Agro, how you doing today?
Doing great, man. Had a great set to start us off today in the SCC, and now I think we're in for some really, really competitive games here today, including Ghost's first game in the SPL. Of course, formerly rival.
That's I think the big talk of the town, at least for this week as of right now, is the fact that Ghost Gaming, as you'll see there on your schedule, taking on the Knights, was formerly team rival. So a lot of people, once you get that straight in your head, it makes a lot of sense as to what you are going to be seeing. But here's your schedule for today. The second set will be Space Station going up against Radiance, which I think is going to be just as good, if not maybe a little spicier than the first one, is mainly because of these standings right here. Both Ghost and SSG are still fighting for that top spot. If one wins and the other loses today, then somebody finally gets to reign supreme, at least for a little bit, as number one. Whereas if you're Radiance or Knights, you're looking to try and claw out of that middle ground. And honestly, Agro, I mean, this is probably the closest like a first versus fifth matchup has really been in the SPL.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, both these teams in Ghost and in PK have had pretty similar trajectories as of late. Both teams were coming off some pretty big win streaks, and then both found a loss last week. Ghost up against Sanguine, and PK up against that SSG team that is now tied for first place. So this is a pretty big week for both of these teams. I think which team gets back on those winning ways, Ghost would be able to secure that number one spot, at least until the second set, depending on the outcome of that one. Or PK can start climbing ever closer because they really don't want to be on the bubble right around that fifth, sixth seed because playoffs are coming up pretty quickly. Yep. And it's very important to be in that top six because the bottom two teams, 7th and 8th, don't even get to come to the playoffs. So that's pretty important to stay above that 6th mark.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, right now, technically, every single team is still up for playoffs. So Bay has some weird, if everyone at the bottom loses out and they win out for the rest of it, still technically able to make that last little mark and be able to go forward. But first and second, they get a bye straight to the semis for those playoffs. So it is very important to be able to get there. And of course, that affects your year-long score. So you want to make sure your playoffs go well. And right now, I mean, the Knights, you know, it was a pretty rough start for them at the very beginning of the year, has really smoothed out as they go into the second half of the first phase, realistically. Noticeably, a lot of focus maybe on the healers. I mean, we got to see the Hell last week out of Paul, I think almost immediately after he said that he doesn't play Hell that well. But it really has kind of felt like maybe the Paul show up front with how big mid has been for the Knights.
Agreed. I think the PK has just found their identity a little bit more as of late. They've kind of returned to this mid-centric game. Cuvo is looking more and more comfortable every single week alongside his teammates, and that's really going to be a big key for this squad with how important this 3v3 core is for this team. Scary D continues to be very consistent in that short lane, which is huge for this squad. And I think that Zap is looking more and more comfortable as well. So basically everything is going pretty well right now for PK, and they had a pretty close set up against a red-hot SSG team last week. They ultimately lost in Game 3, but I think the overall performance with how well SSG is playing, I don't think that you can come away from that loss feeling too bad about yourselves. I think PK is in a pretty good spot to continue their hot streak.
Well, they've been doing pretty well again. The only bad mark, I think, out of the last 4 sets they have has been that SSG set. So they're coming into this one feeling pretty confident about it. In fact, we have Scary D ready to be able to kind of tell us maybe more about what the Knights are feeling going into this set.
I do indeed have Scary D here with me, the solo laner for the Knights. And Scary, first thing I want to ask is you all had kind of a close call up against Obey last week. Just how strong do you think that this new Obey roster really is right now?
I think they're a completely different team with Sino, honestly, because I feel like he understands the game really well. He makes a lot of shot calls. He tells them what to do, and he has really unique picks in the jungle that we haven't seen before. He's spawning all these warriors and stuff, and I think he's really beneficial for Obey. They're definitely way stronger than they were before. I think they're gonna get some wins throughout this upcoming weeks.
I think so too. They do look like a whole different team. Well, what about you personally? I have been saying for a while now that you're kind of on a hot streak just since the whole start of this season. First, is that your same read? Do you feel like you've been playing more consistently lately? And if so, what do you attribute it to?
Yeah, definitely more consistency for me this season. But I think a big part that people don't realize is it's Cubo Fred in the jungle. He creates a lot of space for me, and me and him have a lot more communication than me and Sam did last year. So it's a lot easier for me to like make callouts and stuff and tell him where to go, and he helps me and stuff. And I feel like that's a big part of why I'm playing more consistently, just having Cubo in the jungle, a more vocal jungler.
Well, I've been able to see it in the results, man. You've looked great, and it's huge if Cubo's been a part of that. What are some changes that you guys have made, though, since your first time playing them against Rival, where it was a 2-1, but they came out on top, that lets you think that you guys can find the victory here this time around?
In my opinion, they're an all-in team. Like they pick early pressure and they just want to win the game in like 20 minutes. And if we're able to weather the storm and just survive through that, and we get to late game, I'm pretty sure we'll just win. Or we can try to match the pressure too, and just try to beat them in 20 minutes as well.
So are you going to be trying to get involved pre-20 minutes then, or are you just hoping maybe it's not lost by the time you start rotating into it?
I mean, if I see the opportunity, I'm gonna go for it for sure. I'll rotate if it's there.
All right, Scary. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me there a little bit, man. Good luck here in this next match, and as always, good to hear from.
Appreciate it.
Well, excited to hear from Scary D and the rest of the Knights and kind of their thought process as they go into this game. The thing that stood out to me the most throughout that one, though, Aggro, was specifically the fact that he said having a more vocal jungler there in Cuvo, which you can maybe view as some shots going across the way towards Ghost and Sam, who used to play with this team. But how much of a difference has that jungle matchup really made for these two?
Yeah, I think that both these junglers have been key for their teams, and junglers are always key for the teams. They're the ones who's going to be involved in the most engagements across the entire map. And Sam, while communication might not be exactly where his strength is, that's still going to be an area where you're going to get a great player, even if he's not going to be necessarily your leader in comms. And I think that Sam fits pretty well into the Ghost Gaming strategy, where you have guys like PBM and FineOK who are going to be a little bit more vocal anyways. So you don't need every player on your team to be super vocal. And I think that getting a player like Fred, who might be a bit more of a shot caller in that jungle role, is going to take some extra time, because Neil and Zap did so much of that work last year from talking to those guys that adding another voice takes time to assimilate. And it makes sense that PK struggled a bit at the very beginning of the year and are starting to find their stride now that they've got their communication structure worked out.
Now we can maybe look a little bit more into where Ghost have been, because they started out in a very similar fashion to the Knights, although maybe because of different reasons, a little rough at the beginning of the phase and have since smoothed things forward. And now, of course, with the whole rebranding coming through, you get the question of no more rival curse. I mean, you got a lot of world champs on both sides here, a lot of big names that come through. But who maybe stands out as like the star right now for Ghost Gaming to you?
I feel like when Ghost Gaming is winning games at 20 minutes, like Scary was just talking about, it's almost always because PBM is just dominating the map early on. This duo lane for Ghost is such a key part of how they snowball their victories. And Sam's also a key part of that as well. I mean, it's really Sam's ability to take these leads that his duo lane has, and maybe he gets them by an early gank and transitions that across the map. But I think that everyone on Ghost has looked really good so far this year. Twig has looked comfortable in mid already, which I don't think a lot of people necessarily expected. Fine has been exactly what you expect in that solo lane, which is a premier solo laner in the entire league. and Sam has really assimilated onto this team super well. But I think that when Ghost is at their best, it's almost always because PBM is leading the charge in being that frontline disruptor that can just ruin duo lanes almost single-handedly and set Panda Cat up for some really, really easy carry potential later on in the game.
I'm actually really happy you hone in on PBM of all people because, he's one of the weird standouts that I have in terms of numbers, and that is the fact that he is the highest first blood, not just on Ghost Gaming, but in the league. So the only support who's able to really find that consistently, as you said, when he starts to kind of rise up, it seems like he brings all of Ghost Gaming with him, and luckily we have him standing by to get a few of his thoughts on this matchup before we get into it.
All right, I have PBM here with me, support for Ghost now, I suppose I should say. And I got to ask you about last week. Obviously, that's where we got to start. And that setup against Sangwon. I don't think there's anything to feel bad about losing to a really good team like them right now. But if you can make one adjustment, I suppose, for that set for this team, what would it have been to maybe approach it a bit differently?
I think the way we strategically played our leads was pretty poor. I think that there were a lot of short sights from us just in terms of how we wanted to play the map or plays that we went for. So kind of just tightening things up and cleaning up our play style in general, which, is a thing that is really easy to say but hard to execute. And as you said, there's no shame losing to a really good team. So definitely a nice set to learn some valuable lessons for sure.
Yeah, especially since you all are still tied up there at the top, right, with Space Station, so hard to feel bad, I'd suppose. You guys have now garnered a bit of a reputation as an early game team. Has there been more of a focused effort on trying to play around the early, or is that just how it's kind of worked out?
I really think it just depends. I think, as I've said before, it's kind of like what the other team dictates they are giving us in the draft. Like if we get picks that we're comfortable on that we think can abuse early advantages, of course we're going to try to do that. But we're also comfortable going late game. We've had plenty of 40, 50-minute games that even from behind that we feel like we've played pretty well and have ended up winning. So we still are confident at any stage of the game. It's just if we feel like we do have our early opportunities, we want to push them as hard as we can.
Well, right now, Mike, I feel like Sam's playing like the best jungle in the league, and it's crowded in that field right now. Everyone's playing well. What do you think that he has done that's really been so important here for your roster, and what's it been like kind of melding him into the team?
Yeah, Sam has just been like a great teammate to play with for sure. I think what Sam really surprised me with personally is I assumed he'd be obviously a good player and a smart player, but he's really confident and assertive when he's pretty sure that certain plays are good or that you just need to force them and that he can end up doing a lot. And from my perspective as a support, that feels really good to play with because when you have someone that's just really confident, just literally run in and suicide and I'll be able to get kills off of that, when you can trust that and you can see that he's performing at a really high level, it makes it really easy to play the map and just have faith that he'll find opportunities to, just break games wide open basically.
Well, there's another really confident, strong jungler here on the other side for you guys this week in Cubo Fred. What do you all have seen from the Knights that you think is really their great strength? I feel like it's that they'll play early or super, super late. How do you beat a team like that that's good at so many different stages of the game?
Yeah, I think kind of just as I said before, it just depends on the draft and recognizing where you're strong versus where they're strong. Knights for sure are just a really good team at, I think, playing together and playing cohesively in trying to limit their mistakes if they're trying to play for the late game. They might make mistakes early, but normally not ones that will completely lose them the game right off the bat. So I think just trying to stay composed and knowing, that team especially has been known for just having really good base defense scenarios and just taking games late and being really confident in those spots. So just knowing that the game is basically never over either way and that you just have to play your lead or your deficit, intelligently and then see what happens.
Yeah, sounds like you might have your work cut out for you there, Mike. Always great to get a chance to hear from you, my man. Good luck in your match coming up.
Thanks, Vince. Appreciate it.
It's always nice to be able to hear from the boys there. Now on Ghost Gaming, which is, again, going to take a little bit of a while, even for me to get used to it as it comes forward. But the thing that's been sticking out to me has been the conversation around them being an early game team. I never thought I would hear anyone on the Knights saying they wanted to go to 30 minutes, given the way the first half of the split went. But that seems to be the conversation of the day. Do you think Ghost are the kind of team that needs to win this fast?
No, I don't think they need to. I just think that they're the best at winning the fast. And a lot of teams, I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot of really quick stomps so far this year. That it's been a lot of small leads into, oh, this team threw it, or this team made a great play to make a comeback. It's pretty hard to just snowball a game in Season 7 unless you're Ghost. Ghost has been the one team that I think has done it the most consistently. Not to say they haven't thrown their leads. They've had 5, 6, 8, 10K leads that they've gotten rid of by a couple series of mistakes. So it's not like once they get the lead, it's game over. But I do think that they are the best team in the league right now at opening up the map and getting leads super early.
Well, we'll have to figure out whether or not they can do it super early this time around as we head forward into the picks and bans for game number 1 here. Knights going up against Ghosts. It reads on paper as a 5 versus 1 matchup here. And it reads in the esports tab in game as a 95% vote here for Ghost to beat out the Knights. So a lot of people are leaning towards what I guess you could call the fan favorites over there. And it seems like the Knights have been doing their homework, not just in recognizing that Ghost are an early game team, but also PBM's Hercules and how deadly that is to pretty much anyone's slash line at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah, this is just one of those picks that you basically ban every game if you're in first pick, if you're PK, because it doesn't cost you that much. Neil hasn't been playing a whole lot of Hercules. You're in first pick, so you get to dictate the way picks and bans go, and you make sure that PBM doesn't get Hercules. So you're feeling good about that sort of ban. I like the direction that Ghost is going, though. Uller and Raijin. Ghost has been pretty willing to ban out the Raijin, even though that's one of Captain Twig's most successful gods so far this year. They seem pretty confident in him having a wide enough god pool to compensate. Now, this is where the Hell ban usually comes in against PK, but that would leave open Yamoja, which is the big pick that would be left, and Aphrodite, but we don't know if that's a pick that Paul really likes. Ghost decided to split it here and leave open both Yamoja and Hell and see what PK are going to go for. I'd be surprised if PK didn't go for Yamoja, though, because you don't know if Ghost has a Hell player on their side, whereas you know that threat's still going to be present for Paul.
Well, it's a surprising day, maybe a momentous one here for at least Paul, and recognizing that, I mean, technically you could maybe throw Uller in that list, but realistically only one mid laner gets banned out this time around, so both him and Twig going to be mostly comfortable there in lane. We'll have to see how it comes through. As you mentioned, the Emoja gets locked in on one side. Sobek, that we've been seeing maybe dominate the solo lane, specifically quite a few people. Fine OK comes to my mind almost immediately when I think of how this Sobek has been performing over there, and Ghosts are going to look to pair that up with what I believe is going to be the freshly buffed Rom.
It is, and I'm excited to finally see it. We didn't see it at all yesterday. I was a little bit surprised, but Ghosts feel like it's going to earn them enough pressure in that lane. The biggest difference between Rom before these changes and Rom post these changes is that he has so much better sustain in that lane. His wave 1 historically has been pretty good because of all those astral arrows, but now because you get to get them more often, you get to pick them up, and you get that mana back, you're going to see him really get lane pressure more consistently than before.
And, well, as often as those ults can come up now as well, I expect Chat at least to have their Marvel spam ready whenever you happen to hit all 3 shots. Either way, it'll be clean for them. The Nike picked up here for the Knights. The Hell, that was mentioned before. And I feel like, a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I would have been flipping out over the Nike. There would have been so much conversation. But we've kind of seen what she can do here. But how do you think she fares, specifically like as a jungler, to ganks against the Sobek, to maybe helping and try to shut down a Cerberus? Because either of those could be solo, either of those could be going into the duo.
If I had to guess, I would say it's Cerberus support and Sobek solo, just based on trends in PBM's history. He's really liked this Cerberus pick. And the Cerberus pick makes a ton of sense against the Yamoja and against the Hell. It's a little bit risky against Hell because that cleanse is so good against Stygian Torment, but you have that innate anti-heal built in. She really doesn't like being hit by that ghastly breath. She doesn't have a great way to get away from it. You can stun her before she can get that cleanse off and set yourself up for the Stygian Torment. I think Cerberus is in a really strong place right now as a god against these healers, so I like the pickup, but that tension there against that Hell is going to be if Paul can get these cleanses off on the frontliners. But PK probably feeling like they got away with murder with these first 3 picks, man. Yamoja, Nike, Hell is really, really strong for them.
Well, they take out the Merlin and the Thanatos there for the last couple of bans from the Knights. The last two, the Hachiman and the Hu Yi from Ghost Gaming. And then they lock in the Erlong Shen, which, again, with the way things have been going, was probably going over into the hands of Sam. That's a pretty big taunt to try and help control. I mean, if you're looking at CC and trying to force Paul to cleanse as much as possible, I think the weight's starting to fall on his shoulders.
Agreed, and Erlong's a character that doesn't care that much if you cleanse his CC, because he can just stick to hell really easily anyways. You pin, she cleanses, you mink out of the 72 transformations, and you don't turtle. That way you get that extra movement speed, and you'll just kill her before that damage really comes through. So I think that's a good pick here for Sam.
Well, Jingwei, Amaterasu are going to be locked in there for the Knights to kind of fill everything out. And while Zapman on Jingwei maybe isn't too surprising, neither should Scary D on the Amaterasu, just because of how potent he has been, at least this phase, and what we've seen on this. And there was a little bit of a Zeus hover. I was wondering if that was going to get locked in, just to give you the soapbox to stand on to talk about it. And it actually is going to get locked in. It's switched to the Discordia, but, I mean, how do you feel about this?
Look, he recently got a buff. I've tested it a little bit. It doesn't feel like it really changes that much for this character, but it does make his level 1 a little bit better. This character applies Divine Ruin well because it can bounce throughout a whole team. When you've got this much frontline in front of you, Erlong, Cerberus, Sobek, that's tons of people that you can follow up on really easily. And the dive for PK is okay, but not that great. The Guardian doesn't really do that well at diving you here. I'm worried about the Emoja walls, and I'm worried about the Ama Nike dive onto the Zeus, but the front line is good enough here for Ghost where I think it can be successful.
I can't tell if we're in a dream of yours or not. I'm pinching myself to try and figure it out just because this is going to be another god added to the list played in the SBL, but Zeus locked in here. Well, I was going to ask if you thought it was going to give Ghost an edge, but we don't have time to find out. We'll see if he can give Ghost an edge or if maybe it'll be the problem as we jump down to the casters for game number 1.
Thanks so much, Gormizer on the desk. Yes, we're already getting ourselves underway in this one. PK up against Ghost. Mifflin joining me on the broadcast too. And Miff, I really like both these roster drafts. Honestly, I really like how this one's gearing up.
It looks good. Both teams got a lot of what they're good at. We got Final K on Sobek, check mark for a win condition there. But looking at PK's roster in particular, so many pieces are exactly what they want. Paul on the Hell, Neil getting to see Emoja, Scary D on Ama, and they've got a Nike in the jungle. They have so many win conditions that post 30 minutes, it's going to be hard for Ghost to shut down all of that healing. Yes, they do have a little bit of anti-heal inside of this Cerberus. Yes, they have fantastic ways to apply Divine Ruin and Brawler's Beat Stick, but still, PK literally get away with murder on their first 3 picks.
Yeah, I agree. I think like PK will be able to play into their strengths a little bit here, looking towards the late game. Scary D said that in his interview. But Ghost Gaming, you know, with the Sobek and, of course, with Polar Bear Mike on the Cerberus and the dual lane, they've got a pretty decent amount of anti-heal at base level. Plus, their gods aren't the worst at building into some anti-heal, too. So we'll see how that goes. I think the only interesting thing from my view is they could have looked at a Wheelix instead of Erlang Shen for me, because I think that a Wheelix pick, with the fact they've got a Sobek, with the fact they've got a Cerberus, and the amount of leaps that are on the side of PK, could have been an option for them.
I agree that it would have been a nice combo there, but having the Erlang Shen in your jungle means that you're going to have another frontliner, someone else who's able to dive, create space for Captain Twig on the Zeus, and he's certainly going to need space as Zeus has truly no mobility.
Neil Maher under pressure early on. Beautiful rotation coming through at level 2 from Sam for Soccer. Kind of a rehash of Worlds, funny enough, back in the Season 6 days. But I will also mention, however, this is just another rematch of the World Championships. Bit of a change of a situation, though, as obviously they played already so far this year. Week 3, Ghost did defeat PK 2-1, so it was a close encounter there, and I'm expecting more of the same. But so far, first blood over to Sam for Soccer.
And that's where Sam goes at the beginning of almost every game. Those early duo lane ganks, Sam is so astute at finding them. The follow-up was there from the squad, and they can continue doing that truly almost the entire game. Until Zapman hits level 5, that should be free food. There's so much aggression in that long lane from Ghost Gaming. If PBM's able to move up and find the slow, it's going to be able to set up for that long-range route from Sam. The damage output from Rom is nothing to sneeze at, especially post-buff. Now he's got some scaling damage on his 3. That's a little bit of burst.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if Panda can really do much with the ultimate here, outside of buy a bit of time for his team to rotate in. Because if you, like we mentioned about the amount of sustain that PK have this time round. Getting snipe kills might be a bit awkward, but it looks like they're looking for more pressure here, Ghost. That ward placed down by Neil will spot them as they walk around the corner, but Sam's on the way too, and the pressure is on. Pin on Neil Mar. Stun does hit Sam, and buy him a second to get that Riptide off, and look to run away back to safety. Good little bit of escape there from Neil under the circumstances.
And they're able to confirm their own buff and mitigate some of those losses there. Sam's going to keep trying to do that. There's no reason to stop just yet. They've already established a slight lead over there, and Rom is a god that can really run with a lead. If he gets any sort of XP advantage or gold advantage, his auto attacks are already going to be hitting for more. The slow is going to be incredibly hard to escape from. I like the strategy.
Cuvo Fred, though, on the right-hand side, trying to make sure that Fine OK does not receive his own blue buff, trying to limit down what Sobek can really do in this lane, although what does Sobek really do in the lane? Survive, sustain, and then look to reinitiate later on in these team fights. I guess taking into account Lick in the Waters gives him so much mana anyway. It doesn't cripple him down too hard by stealing the blue buff, especially when he's got a Mage's Blessing.
Having to trade off your ultimate for that mana sustain is almost never going to feel good. It's going to open yourself up to ganks. It's his sole source of CC immunity. Outside of that maybe 0.5 seconds you get from using the pluck, but that's so hard to consistently do. I'm sure Fine would have much preferred to have his own blue buff there, but this is what you pick Sobek for. You leave him on that island, you trust that he's going to be able to sustain and survive regardless of how much pressure that the enemy team puts over there, and it allows Ghost to continue applying pressure to the long or mid if they so choose.
Well, here we go again. Sam with another rotation, but there's a ward in the jungle for PK to keep an eye on. Ghost making this. And all the pressure so far has been towards the duo lane, but now we see Mike and Sam rotate towards mid. Blink early from Mike, looking for Paul. Paul out of mana, but good beat and good cleanse. Keeps him alive just in time. Twig did drop the ultimate down there. I think if he would have dropped it a little bit earlier, he might have got an extra tick. But Paul will survive for now as Ghost keep the pressure up early.
Trading out that Zeus ultimate early on means that he is going to be a fantastic dive target. That's really the only self-peel that Zeus is going to have in that early game phase, especially before we see that 3v3 stack up. So if they decide to send Cuvo over into mid, they might be able to pick up a return kill off of that attempted aggression from Ghost Gaming. But Ghost has been doing a fantastic job of applying pressure in this long lane. Maybe that shifts the focus of PK's jungle to try and alleviate some of that.
Well, Scary D did say in his interview that if he gets a window, he's going to look to exploit it. And here it is on Sam for Soccer. Good stun combo and Paul just rotating in. Ghosts were caught a little bit unaware there. They had members on the left-hand side looking at red buff on the left-hand side of the map. And Sam just got caught out. Great play from Scary D and good backup from Paul.
I like that a lot. Scary wasn't really looking for the kill there. He was just trying to strip away a little bit of farm, but luckily he catches out Sam and the rotation was there.
And now Scary D under pressure too. No ultimate available. Good counter response from Ghost Gaming there. I think PK just bit off a little bit more than they expected. Taking that blue buff and hanging around a little bit too long. Just kind of even the odds a little bit. So Ghost Gaming still with the lead, about 500 gold here. Fine OK, trying to secure this buff and strip it away. Does so. Still taking the fight as Mike's on the way, but so is Neil Mar. The River's Rebuke to slow him down. Won't really stop the lurking in the waters. With the health bars dropping on Fine OK considerably. Mike's just trying to mosey to an extent. Fine OK back towards safety and sustain on that right-hand side. Plenty of action early in this one.
Fine played that so well. The pluck to reset the buff just ever so slightly so they can confirm it himself. That's not a steal that you're going to get off very often, especially 1 versus 3 regardless of God. But doing it on Sobek is even more impressive because his burst potential really isn't there. Then the peel from Mike gets him out of that dangerous situation. That's a clean play, and they get themselves a blue after the tail end of an invade.
I guess, Smith, as well, that Mage's Blessing that we've got picked up for Fine OK, it's a little bit more damage, right, than what you get from a Warrior's Blessing as standard in that lane. Maybe that's why it's helped him out to be able to do something like that, you know? He's not got, like you said, his clear's not great, but Cuvo Fred in mid lane looking at Twig. Twig drops the ultimate down, uses an Aegis to buy him as much time as possible. But Scary D, after his death, comes straight back towards mid, and a good pick onto the Zeus.
Man, Scary is controlling the map so well this game, and he has to because he knows Sobek is not really able to rotate out in the early game. Fine OK is just looking to farm up, try and rotate in once the team fight phase starts and be that initiation factor or backline peel. Scary has a lot more leeway in the early to do whatever he needs to, rotate in, put his team ahead. So far, been a part of 2 kills for his squad, and he's not falling behind because every time he rotates out, he's getting some sort of success off of it.
Yeah, I don't know what I like more about this set. I'm more excited. Hopefully it just goes 3 more than anything else, because this is just going to be a back and forth encounter. Both junglers making plays. The solo lane is getting the action. Cuba Fred now on the right-hand side, trying to steal away Fine OK's buff again, is successful in the jungle. Neilmar will meet Panda Cat there. Sorry, Polar Bear Mike at the same time. But Fine OK has caught Cuba Fred under a bit of pressure. No ultimate available for Cuba Fred, and a beautiful stun coming out from the paralyzing spirit of Polar Bear Mike will set up Fine OK for his first kill in this game. And now turnaround is fair play. Ghost's going to invade the blue buff.
It's second verse, same as the first. Invade my blue. All right, good job. I'll just go ahead and get yours. And this time they find a kill as well. That's a nice rotation as well. 3 members over to the soul lane to make sure that Final K can do what he needs to. It opens them up towards a gold fury, but they don't have to worry about it too much, as Paul on this hell can't really burst down an objective. Jingwei's being pushed into her tower the entire time. It's calculated aggression from Ghost. They're playing exactly as they need to in the early game. They're trying to make sure that they get some sort of leads. They're getting aggressive, trying to make sure that they can slow down that farm from Paul, slow down the late game time bomb that is this healer comp on PK's side. If they keep this up and they can maintain this pace, they should be able to enter into the mid game with a slight lead and try and force some advantageous fights.
Well, there is a situation as well. When you look at movement speed on the side of PK, there's a lot of it. Scary D brings a lot with this Amaterasu. Cuvo Fred's passive as it stacks up will give a bit more mobility to the team. And then Paul with those Inspires and Neil Marr with the Riptides. Like, this is a very mobile composition that PK have drafted here. Do you reckon if you Ghost, maybe you try and limit that somehow? I guess the pins are going to do that, but hold that thought. Mike took way more damage than bargained for there. Before he can get the tail end of Ghastly Breath to go off, he's bursted down and Paul picks up another kill.
Can't be sleeping on that hell damage. We say that she's a late game time bomb, and she is, but her early game burst potential is still incredibly high. We see that almost single-handedly Paul does about 60% of Mike's health bar there, and that can continue to happen until he gets some magic defense online. Hasn't quite finished up his Thebes yet. Those stacks are going to take a little while, and he's not going to get any base magic defense for a little while either. It's all incredibly expensive in that support build. Now he's got the same XP deficit, 7-7.
Twig gonna die in the jungle here. 4 members of PK collapse, but can they all get away scot-free? It's Scary D under pressure, trapped in the pit. Could be a casualty. Beautiful stop from Neil.
Whoa.
And Scary picks up Mike. Paul takes out Sam, and Fine OK's gotta run. 9 kills in 9 minutes. This is all action. I'm hyped. Oh, and Mike, Panda in mid. He just sniped out Zap. No escape for him either. We've got action everywhere.
Ghosts just doing their best to get what they can back on the board. Panda Cat finds that solo kill, which is absolutely huge to mitigate some of that loss, but PK's aggression right there was fantastic. The chain CC was perfect. Not often you're going to hit 3 people with the Emoji stun. Not often that you're going to have Nike to knock up all 3 on the tail end of it as well. Fantastic peel from the squad off aggression onto the enemy back camps. Ghost Gaming just wasn't quite aware of what was going on, get caught out immediately. Clean play from both squads, and truly just a ton of aggression.
Yeah, problem is, though, 4-0-1 Paul in the mid lane on this hell already. 4 kills to a mid lane hell. Painful. Let's not look back, though, at that kill in mid lane that we saw. Panda and Zap both rotated towards the middle area here to try and keep the pressure going. And looks like this. Panda Cat just managed to pick off the shots, exactly what you expect out of a Rama player at this level. Great little start, then, for the Hunter from Ghost Gaming.
Little tidbit on ROM, when you pick up the arrows, you get the regen. Now you're also going to get some ult CDR online every time you get some of those Astro arrows back. Yeah, that's going to happen often.
Cuba Fred just took more what than bargained for there, as did Mike as Paul rotated in. The health bars are just dropping in seconds with these comps. And I love the goon squad mentality that PK have, rotating with 3s and 4s already. This is not the PK we're used to. You heard in the interview, Scary D was talking about, hey, like, if we can get to 20 minutes, we feel confident. But we're just going to get through that early game. And what they're doing is fighting fire with the amount of pressure they're giving off early.
Maybe they're confident about that 20-minute mark because they know they're trying to establish a lead early on. Now already about 400, 500 gold in the lead. They're able to continue finding aggression wherever on the map that they want. No neutral objectives have really been challenged yet. Neither team really has the fantastic burn potential that you're used to seeing out of maybe like a Raijin or a Merlin, these huge burst mages that can just burn away these objectives. With a Hell and a Zeus on the board, both teams are really looking at that team fight phase. At 20 minutes, though, if this Hell keeps up this pace, I'm not sure that Zeus is going to be able to keep up in damage or sustain.
Credit where it's due to Neil Marr getting a bit of a lead over Polar Bear Mike, but here comes Sanford Soccer to the left-hand side again. Blink is available for him, but going to look towards the purple buff first of all. Neil's there to try and stop that from happening. Don't think it'll be the case now, but Paul now on the chase too. And it's Sam trapped in a pit. Great turtle form to escape. The run is on, but he's going to walk straight towards Cuvo Fred. Nice little pin towards him to try and stay alive, but nobody is around to support. PK collapse in numbers again and frustrate Sanford Soccer in this early game.
I'm not willing to call Hell a late game god anymore. The damage output that we're starting to see is absolutely insane. That was about 40% of Sam's health bar that was immediately eviscerated by Hell's third ability, and that's going to continue to happen. Every single person that Paul's been able to walk at this game has immediately been shredded. They have fantastic follow-up on the side of PK. Paul's never walking alone, that goon squad, as you pointed out, and they're leveraging that early game Hell damage. They're able to use that sustain early on. The mobility that he affords his team with the heal to give additional movement speed, they're just rotating around the jungle as a group incredibly quickly and potently.
PK trying to give back towards Ghost what Ghost like to dish out to others here, and the Gold Fury started up for a second. Scary D on this right-hand side was getting a bit potently aggressive here. Low on mana, so has to watch himself. Fine, okay, though. Got to keep track of that. And actually, good spot out there from Doug. It was Scary D stripping away that speed buff on the right-hand side. They're really trying to limit what Sanford Soccer can do this game, PK, and it's working out very effectively. He's now a level down over Cuvo Fred.
I like the strategy as well. Erlang Shen is one of those bridge pick-esque junglers that's going to be very strong in the mid game, very strong in the early game, but Erlang's going to start to fall off, especially if he decides to go towards this more damagey build. It's going to be very difficult for Sam to dive into the backline and consistently land these auto attacks. If he elects to pick up a stone cutting, if he elects for any sort of item like that that requires sustained damage output, there's so much on the side of PK that can deter him from doing that. Paul's damage comes to mind. Neil's peel abilities, Scary and Cubo's front line. This Erlang's getting shut down in the early game is huge.
Early on from Cuvo Fred there, a little bit wasted, but the damage on Sam's going to get a Scary. He collapses, and Sam dies for his 4th time there on the right-hand side, just trying to get his own blue. That blue's now going to be stolen away on this side. And I guess the other thing to mention as well is what you were talking about there, frustrating Sam. He's going for this Toxic Blade too, so he's got a little bit more of this anti-heal that's going to be required here. But yeah, I think you're kind of right, you know, like shutting down, it's not his damage that you shut down, it's really his survivability in these engagements with how much he's eaten early on.
He's not going to get that defense online nearly enough. He's already 2 levels down on this Cuvo Fred on the Nike. Things aren't looking good for Sam for safety right now. He's going to need to really incur that and try and get some safety going, farm up. Right now, Ghost Gaming's entire strategy should be mitigating loss. I know it's only 1,000 gold down, but already Paul's off to a fantastic start. We're seeing that Scary D's off to a fantastic start. Every single team fight that PK has started up, they've been able to win pretty handedly. Ghost Gaming need to start playing reactionary, group up, try and respond to this aggression from PK, and stop them from being able to strip away these buffs, stop them from invading these back camps and killing Sam in his own jungle. He needs some help from the boys, and it's really whether or not Ghost can get Fine, okay, rotating in, PBM rotating in. They can leave Panda Cat alone. He's doing fine against Zapman. They need to shift their focus more towards the center of the map.
I mean, the good news is, though, if you're a Ghost Gaming fan here, their situation in terms of experience, they're not that far behind right now. Like, Zap is still even with Panda after making a tumble earlier on. Look at Captain Twig as well. He's 4 kills down in this game, but he's still keeping pace. PK, though, trying to push their lead here. Gold Fury started up. Frenzy popped by Paul early on. Was that Paul? No, sorry. Tell a lie. But the Frenzy was actually popped. The pressure on. Looking for the pick. PK will get the Fury. Mike trapped inside the River's Rebuke, and that's a dead Mike. Scary D getting credit for the kill there. Still the pressure in is the leap towards Sanford Soccer is the pick target again. Onk pops in the backline from Fine OK to reduce some healing, as now Panda's trying to thread the needles towards Neil Marr. Zap jukes back towards safety of his team. Low on health, and Panda Cat's in no man's land now. Bit of caught out of position, needs some help, and instead turns around, kills Zap, drops the Aegis, and then falls down to Cubo Fred. But Paul's burst is too much for Sam to sustain, and that trade-off goes the way of PK yet again. As the Gold Fury falls, the lead grows to 2,500.
Gold Fury falls. It was a 2-1 trade in favor of Ghost, but PK do run away with that Gold Fury. That's a rough fight for Ghost. They get split up really hard. Sam immediately gets forced out early on in the engagement, has to re-engage to try and help out his boy PK, and he just can't do it. He moves up. He doesn't get Panic out alive. Both relics were burned on this Rom, and both enemies die on the side of Ghost Gaming. Now, if Rom tries to move up aggressively as he has been against Jingwei, what's he going to do? He's got no actives available. He has to be worried about Sam for Soccer, despite Sam being so far down.
That was the most depressing thing to watch. FineOK just sit there and eat Scary D's ultimate, knowing he can't do anything about what's about to happen here. He can't burst the blue buff down in time. So I'd have to just watch himself get stunned and lose the blue on that right. Great players from both teams so far in this one. PK with a decent, comfortable position so far, but I don't think they can let off the gas really, Myth, because Ghost have been trying to answer back and keep this level disparity at the bare minimum. Look at that, Panda Cat still a level ahead of Zapman at the moment with how this one's played out. Captain Twig only a little bit behind that of Paul in the mid lane. And actually checking in with some of these builds, multiple Relic Daggers and Wing Blade now for Sam. I thought it was going to be a Toxic, but it's going to be a Wing Blade to remove some of these slows to allow him a bit more survivability and escapability.
Maybe they sacrificed that Toxic Blade early on because Ghost Gaming do elect to pick up 2 Onks on their side and mitigate a lot of the healing coming out from PK. But so far, it really hasn't been the healing that's been winning PK these fights. It's all been burst potential, instantly these engagements burning down the enemies on Ghost Gaming.
Well, Kiva was just a little bit too early there to catch the beads of Twig. The beads were still there, so the knock-up didn't really hit, and that will allow Twig to survive, but it did cost him those beads. Scaredy and Cuvo Fred now fall back towards mid lane, get a bit of sustain where needed from Neilmar and Paul, but Paul just got plucked under the tower by FineOK. Onk pop 2 to reduce the healing, but the follow-up damage isn't there. Cuvo Fred in the jungle, though, taking a trade with Sam for Soccer. Hunters slowly getting into the mix too as they rotate over towards the Pyromancer. Zap's getting down very quickly, and PK strip another objective away from Ghost.
Man, PBM gets a fantastic Stygian Torment there, but immediately gets cleansed out by Paul. Trading out your ultimate for a 10-second cooldown from the enemy mid laner, probably not the most valuable thing you could do with it, but that's the weakness of this Cerberus. Yes, you have the anti-heal, but there's so many ways for PK to respond to that ultimate. If Paul's able to be in the backline and just look at PBM while he's engaging, there's almost no opportunity whatsoever for him to find his own ult.
FineOK a little bit too far forward here, looking to bring down the tower. May get punished for it. Riptide keeps him in place, as does the River's Rebuke. Lurks into the water to buy time. He's not going to get any help over here. FineOK just out of position, too far forward. Didn't know the rotation of the whole army of PK was on the way. And this Myth might just set up a cheeky Fire Giant attempt.
It certainly could. I mean, PBM level 13, Panda Cat has to play incredibly far back here. Zeus doesn't have fantastic steal potential, and he has to get pretty close to deal his damage. It's going to be rough.
That ult doesn't really hit anything other than a Fire Giant, so Fire Giant could still go down here, but Twig is dead. No detonate through death for you, my friend. PBM trying to trade out with Zap on the backside, but Panda Cat is not having fun in his own jungle as he's surrounded by 3, and not only that, Zap takes that 1v1 with Mike and wins it. All the while, Sam's on the left-hand side just trying to farm up and catch up and experience a Fire Giant to PK, and they're starting to run away with this game at 20 minutes in.
Man, I blinked my eyes. Zapman was about a quarter health. I looked again. He was full health on the tail end of a Fire Giant. Sam couldn't rotate in there, so he does the next best thing, pushes out the lane, tries to get some of those levels back, but it might be a little too late. He's already 3 levels down. 1 in 5 is a slash line. Toxic Blade is online now, but because of this huge lead that PK has, nearly 10,000 gold, I think closer to 7, and a Fire Giant online, all these towers still available to increase the gold lead. Gold Fury respawning as well in the next 10 seconds. There's at no point is this Erlang Shen be able to get into the backline and auto-attack Paul. At no point is he going to be able to find his way into any sort of backline ever because the damage output from these backliners is too much for him to deal with. Sam's been effectively removed from this game. He's a non-factor. Ghost Gaming is completely reliant on FineOK finding a huge pluck and then huge CC potential. Panda Cat has to blow up anyone that gets CC'd in front of him. We're really reliant on Twig using his ult maybe to just zone out the fight and split it up so they can take manufactured 4v1s, 5v1s, split up the entirety of PK's roster. But it's going to be so difficult now. The sustain is coming through. The Onks have been largely ineffective so far. These aren't prolonged engagements from PK. They're just winning them outright. They're not resetting the heal. They're not really leveraging their heal that much outside of out of combat moving towards these objectives because they've been able to cleanly win every engagement.
I will say 11 assists for Neil Maher this game. He has had a stellar performance on this Yemoja. I don't think we've seen the best of Yemoja overall, but some players are starting to get the hang of it now. And in this matchup specifically, he's doing a very good job with these ultimates. And some of those Riptides too. PK now with the Fire Giant at 20 minutes, looking to extend their lead further, looking towards the tier 2 towers, but Ghost Gaming don't want to give them up uncontested, trying to slow down the bleed a little where they can. And that's why PK is splitting the difference across the map. Pull them left, pull them mid, backwards and forwards. However, the two in mid are going to take a ton more damage than bargained for. Tier 2 does fall on the left-hand side. It cost him Scary's ult and Cuvo's ult, but that did come at the cost of Sam and Twigs. And now with the rotation of Zap, Paul, and Neilmar to the action, this tier 2 in mid should fall soon. Neilmar again with a beautiful Rivers Rebuke. Twig, where's your health bar? Beautiful stun. Scary D gets credit for the kill, but that was all Neilmar, baby. Beautiful play. Onto the Phoenix we go.
That was literally all just Neil damage
Insane.
there. Scary gets credit for the kill, but Neil does it on his own. Immediately Twig removed from the battle. His ultimate was down anyway, so the defense potential isn't there. Sam's ultimate no longer available means that that engagement factor isn't really there. It would have been his only way to stick in these fights for a prolonged period of time, and now that it's no longer up, he's got no way to take this engagement.
This gas pedal is still being hit by PK, though. All nice and healthy. Fire Giant for another minute. Still no minions here, but they're taking up a storm. Scary D's ultimate is back up. Looks for the backline. Finds Panicat to the sky. Scary D will fall down for his transgressions, though. As Zap is tanking the Phoenix here. Polar Bear Mike for a good ultimate, but cleansed down again. Get out of my face, says Cubo Fred. Picks up a double kill. 2 Phoenixes down. And PK choose to fall back. Twig did just respawn with ultimate and relics available. But my oh my, this PK game today is amazing. This is a masterclass so far.
That has got to be so frustrating for Mike. He finds the huge ultimate, 3 targets landed, immediately all 3 cleansed, and then what does Paul do? He switches into Dark Stance and decks Mike in his mouth for 600 damage. What can you do about that? Played perfectly, punished, and it's all because of the state of the game right now. We're rapidly approaching 20,000 gold differential. Fire Giant spawning in 1 minute, but Ghost Gaming's lacking 2 Phoenixes, the left and center, the 2 hardest to defend when you're trying to protect the Fire Giant. And I don't even think they should move up. They have to regroup around their Titan and pray that they win an engagement somehow. They have to find a way towards Paul in this back line, but how are they going to do it? Their frontliners, all in Ghost Gaming, are too weak to really dive in. Captain Twig's not playing a long-range artillery god. He's really reliant on having this King Protection squad, and no one's protecting anyone because everyone's looking out for numero uno. Ghost Gaming, it's going to take an actual miracle, a literal miracle is how
Really
Ghost Gaming comes back here.
Got to give some credit to Paul as well with this game, because I'm kind of thinking back to how the first 10 minutes went. Ghost got off to a good start, plenty of pressure from Sam, looking for ganks in duo. But then all of a sudden, Paul started making rotations quicker than we normally see out of Paul. Normally he just sits in lane, farms up, no real rotations to speak of. But on this hell, he started moving around a lot more, joining Cuvo Fred, joining Neilmar on these rotations. And it made such an impact to Sam for soccer and put him so far behind that Ghost Gaming have been playing catch-up ever since. And they're doing it right about now too, looking for this left-hand tier 2 tower. But this is allowing PK to barrel on down the right-hand side. 3 members did just get spotted on the left, but PK don't have minions here just yet. Fire minions pouring down mid will reach there relatively soon. This tier 2 should fall on the left-hand side. Eventually, Ghost have to get back to defend, and that's actually going to force Twig to use his ultimate just to make sure PK don't barrel on through with a man advantage.
Ghost has no way to clear waves safely. Zeus ultimate really was the only option there, and that feels bad, man. Never do you want to use your huge team fight ultimate to clear out 6 minions at the 25-minute mark. I mean, it's the best option he had available. It's really all he could do, but Fire Giant's burned away so quickly. The minion wave's already pushed up by PK on this right side. This Zeus ultimate's not going to be available on this next engagement, and Ghost Gaming, they have nothing else in the tank. Stygian Torment's been crushed every single time by Cleanse. Final K hasn't been able to find a pluck that has had any significant follow-up on it. PK knows all of that, so they split up the engagement, knowing that the 2v2 in mid should beat just about anybody, and the 3 strong on right should beat just about anybody.
Not going to lie, those 2 in mid, Scaredy and Cuvo, I'm excited to see their career together now because they seem to be just gelling so well. A jungler and a solo lane are back in action again. And the sort of tanky targets they go with so far have worked out well for them. Neil going to tank up this Phoenix on the right-hand side, just trying to get a window for Zap to get some basics in there. Scary zoning Mike away. Rivers Rebuke dropped down by Neil to try and separate a little bit more. And Panda Cat forced to use his ultimate to escape some danger. This Phoenix on the right-hand side, now with minions coming through, should fall soon. Ghost Gaming have to fall back to their Phoenix. Twig did use his ultimate there too, so that's not going to be available for the actual Titan defense. It's just a case now, I guess, for PK to look for the fire minions to help them out here.
This has been the first prolonged engagement of the game, and now we're starting to see where all that healing's coming through. PK trade out their health bars. Doesn't really matter. Take a peek. They might as well be in their own fountain with Yamoja and Hell walking around like this. Phoenix respawns. What are they going to do? Ghost can't do anything. No one's in position. They're zoned out by Cubo.
Aegis down, life is down. Scary D got the kill. Next on the list is Fine OK. Can't even escape the look in the waters. The cleanse from Paul removes the option again. Game 1 is going to PK. That was clean. A beautiful play.
I mean, I'm convinced. They convinced me. PK did a fantastic job there. Immediately they removed Sam from the game. PBM can't land an ultimate because Cleanse has been on point the entire time. The draft was there. They wanted to get all this anti-heal online, Cerberus, Sobek, but it can't do anything when Paul's playing around that Cleanse so well for his team.
Probably the best game I've seen so far at PK this year. Beautiful performance. Game 1 in the books. Let's see what the desk has to say.
I have to say they managed to get almost as many kills as minutes. I think they were just one kill away from being able to tie that. And when you hit the 27 mark, that's kind of the sign that these teams have been fighting. But aggro, I mean, that is a huge twist, I think, throughout that entire game. It starts off with Ghost kind of controlling the ship, piloting where everything is going. And then, what, maybe 16 minutes in, maybe even a little sooner, it feels like the Knights just ripped control away.
Sam was the engine that was driving Ghost that game, and as soon as they derailed him, the entire game plan went off the tracks there for Ghost. And I just think that Ghost fell behind a little bit more quickly than they anticipated. A lot of them looked like they were trying to build for these 3-4 item power spikes, but by the time these third items, fourth items were done, the game was basically done. It was just PK that needed to wrap up their sieging at that point. But the Relic Dagger third there for Twig is just not a defensive item that's going to save you when you're that far behind already. I think if you're going to go that item, you have to be ahead, and we just didn't see an audible there for Twig. Back-to-back daggers there for Sam for Soccer in the jungle. Again, really good when you're ahead, really useless when you're behind. Building defense when you're behind doesn't really do a whole lot for you because the enemy team is scaling their offense faster than you could scale your defense. You need to actually just build damage when behind and hope that you could explode someone before they're ready for it. And I just think that Rival went with a bit of a different mentality that didn't have a good chance of working out.
Now it goes throughout that. I mean, the conversation maybe for picks and bans was a little bit about the anti-heal, looking at trying to shut down that Hell, maybe trying to handle that Yamoja. But Neil had so many ridiculously good Rivers Rebukes to lock people in. 0-1 and 16 there for the support. 7-0 and 8 for Paul, 7-1 and 9 for Cuvo. I mean, everyone on the Knights looks incredibly good, but was it driven by the support like we've seen in the past, or was Paul kind of the one that was keeping everyone afloat and moving forward?
I mean, Paul got huge early on and was definitely a key factor, but a huge reason why Paul got so big was because of what Neil was doing on this Yamoja. And Yamoja just makes Zeus's already nearly impossible job of surviving the Ama Nike dive into a truly impossible one with that Rivers Rebuke. Neil just brought that extra tier of healing and that extra tier of control and mobility that I think pushed this Knight's composition over the edge and made it to a point where nothing Ghost was going to be able to do was going to be able to make them come back. And so now, if you're Ghost, I think that changes your picks and bans because being willing to give up both Yamoja and Hell, I think is a pretty tough ground to find a win on. And I think you've got to change up your strategy. I don't think you could let PK have both.
I don't know if it's the right question or the wrong question. I guess to go to you no matter what, but Zeus, you had kind of mentioned he already has trouble surviving. Didn't necessarily have the cleanest game. Are you sold on him? Is it something that you want to see Ghost maybe go back to? Or are you going to kind of hard divert from that in the mid lane and maybe go back to something more standard like the Raijin?
Yeah, I don't think I would have gotten to the Zeus in the first place, to be honest with you, Gore. I just don't think that he's in a particularly strong spot in the meta right now. I mean, that if there's a comp that can make it work, I think that the composition that Ghost had around the Zeus can make it be really strong. But as soon as that character falls behind, you just have no tools left in the. You're not a unique control mage. You're not bringing a whole lot of CC. You do one thing and one thing only, and that's deeps. You only bring damage, and when you're that far behind, it's just pretty hard to get back into the game from that position. So personally, I wouldn't be going back to it here.
Well, we'll have to see what they do. I'm more in the same vein where maybe it's not something you go running back to, but, well, Ghosts are the ones who ultimately get to decide as we get ready here for game number 2. Knights now just one away from being able to close this, but the last time they played in the regular season, it was a 3-game set, so don't count them out just yet. That's going to be, I think, the biggest thing kind of keeping your eyes on. And maybe the bans coming through, it's not too terribly often that you get to see a team maybe take that first pick twice in a row, but nothing was going perfectly wrong for the Knights either, so maybe they just circle back and grab that Yemoja. They're going to start it off the same way with the Hercules ban.
Yeah, if Ghost is going to give you first pick again, then just do the same thing. And like I said, I think Ghost is the ones that have the responsibility to make changes in their picks and bans. I think that we'll see a Yemoja ban from them or a Hell ban. I just can't imagine a world where PK get both 2 games in a row, even with all the built-in guaranteed anti-heal that Ghost had in that last draft, Cerberus and Sobek, the Divine Ruin early on, the Toxic Blade for Sam eventually. I just don't think that you can withstand it if you get even a little bit behind. And Ghost agree. They do decide to ban the Hell this time around.
I like it, switching it out for the Raijin there, so potentially leaving themselves a little bit of a treat depending on what Knights go for first. And they're actually going to take it away. So Camazotz was there last time around. And, I mean, there's a lot of conversation around the top, I would argue, like 5 picks, and that do take up some of those bans. But is it worthwhile here for the Knights to pick up the Yemoja again, or do they want to maybe swing something out of Twig's pool?
No, I think you pick them consistently early in the draft. So I think that going with this Yemoja right away with the performance that Neil had is just the way to go.
Well, this time around, the King Arthur does make it through, which is something that Ghost, I believe, banned last during the first phase of Game 1. So going into the solo lane, are there matchups that he maybe is favored over, or is there something that Knights can maybe do to control it? The Amaterasu always looks good on Scary D, but can he bring it out again?
Yeah, he could. I mean, I think that a lot of what you want to do against Arthur is just play the rotation game and understand that your only kill potential on this character is pre-5, pre-Glad Shield. After that, Arthur just dominates that lane pretty effectively. And so you'll see some teams try and give you pretty good scaling gods over there. Sometimes you might go with Achilles, try and hit that early power spike and kill him early on. But for the most part, once Arthur's locked in, you're just kind of dealing with that later on in the game. But I like the Chernobog pick. It takes Zap away from this Arthur and team fights. It lets him affect the map early on. It gives him a more aggressive lane matchup than the Jing Wei, where Panda Cat really dominated him in that 1v1 with this ROM. So I like this switch up. And how can you not be excited about Fred getting this Nike again? It feels like this is his premier pick right now.
And I will say, the one thing that stands out the most about the Chernobog is it's much easier to settle Zapman's Chernobog as Zernabog than it is Barracuda's whichever fusion that you want to go for that the argument has been. Poseidon Chernacuda definitely feels pretty good. Poseidon is locked in there for Captain Twig. Someone that has been, I want to say, on the cusp of greatness. We have seen some really good Poseidon and some really not good Poseidon, so he'll have a lot coming up to him. But Amaterasu, Osiris banned away there, taken out of the solo lane for the Knights, whereas it's going to be Thanatos, presumably another jungler here, and Naja taken away from Ghost Gaming. So where do you want to see Sam go? I mean, you know, last game, Hindu had actually mentioned the Awelish at the very beginning. Do you think she can fit in here?
I think so. It looks like that's not the case, though. It's going to be Vamana, just something that dives pretty effectively. I think Awelish actually would have been a very strong pick when you have this Poseidon and King Arthur, both of whom have knockups. Yemoja knocks herself up, or anyone she uses Riptide on her team. Nike jump in. I think that Awelish could have been a strong pick. It just feels like Twig is also having trouble finding a mage that can handle this Nike well, and frankly, I think a lot of people are having that trouble. right now, Raijin being one of the only ones, and I think it's why PK is so willing to ban it. Now you've got the Aphrodite, another traditional counterpick to Poseidon. You latch onto this Nike, and how does Twig ever do anything effective against this matchup? I think that this is going to be a really tough game for him in mid.
It's going to be rough. Aphrodite, I mean, yesterday we finally got to talk about the third healer that hardly ever gets to come through in Shango. But Aphrodite, I mean, she's been huge lately. One of the top bans that has come through and very potent when she is finally picked up on a team. Jormungandr is the solo laner here for the Knights. That's what Scary D is going to be taking. But Bacchus on the other side, so still keeping a little bit of anti-heal in the team. How do you feel about what Ghost have put together? Can it take down the Knights?
I think that the Vamana switch-up is an interesting one. I think it can stick to the Aphrodite effectively, but I wonder if it has enough burst damage to take it down right away. I think that Ghost has some better tools, but I'm still worried about what Twig's going to be able to do against this draft from PK. He still gets walled in by Yamoja. He's still very easily dove by Nike and Yorm. And now Aphrodite ult basically negates Kraken.
Yep. Well, from the mostly immobile Zeus to the slightly less immobile, but still not that fast Poseidon, Twig might be the key to the game. We'll have to see if Ghost can make it work as we go back down to the casters.
Thanks so much, Goran Agro. Yes, into game we go. PK up 1-0 over Ghost. Hopefully Ghost can bounce back. Otherwise, you know, the whole rebrand to Ghost could start with a loss, which I'm sure nobody would like to see. Twig, though, piling the Poseidon here. And Mifflin, how do you feel about these compositions in game 2?
I like what they're going for, Ghost Gaming. The shift is really strong here. We're seeing that FinoK is on a much more aggressive god. He might be able to match some of that rotation pressure that Scary D had last game. I like that Twig's playing a god that makes actual sense to me. I'm not a Zeus truther. I don't think that god does too much well. Panda Cat, under some early aggression, should be able to make it out just fine. Neo Ma, on the other hand, takes damage in return. The draft is good. Sanford Soccer should have a fantastic time diving deep into the backline. Paul on this Aphrodite will be hard to shut down, though.
Yeah, very interesting to see. The big pick for me, the Aphrodite for Paul. I don't think I've seen too much of that, but it's another sustaining option yet again coming out from PK. But this time around, look at where Sanford Soccer is. Didn't end up going for the level 2 gank that he did previously. Instead, got into the jungle, starting to strip away some of these camps. Back harpies. Red buff as well, I believe, is also being dropped down there by Ghost. So a bit of an advantage for Sam in terms of farm instead of this early pressure. Is that a better idea with him playing this Vamana this game? Look for the early farm and strip away rather than ganking?
The early gank potential from Vamana at this point is nearly null. He likely has his third ability, he likely has his first ability, so he's got a slight slow and he's got a knock up. That's it. He's not matching the damage that Erling Shen brought last game with his passive. He doesn't have the long-range confirmable CC inside of that pin. You want to farm up. Vamana from ahead can sit on these mages, can sit on the backline consistently, especially considering we're likely going to see him go towards that Sino build with the Atalanta's bow, with these stone-cutting sword, things like that. His tankiness is almost completely reliant on levels, so farming up in the early game should fit that style. PK also wants to do that. They've got Nike coming online. Neil's going to be able to rotate out very easily and have his heals be hugely effective. And Aphrodite in the late game is nearly as crippling, if not more so, than a Hell is. This slow start from Ghost might actually benefit PK just a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll see how this works out then, because PK are playing a little bit slow this game, probably will need to with this composition they've got here. And I think it's interesting what you mentioned about FinoK versus Scary D here. Obviously, laning phase, Scary D will be pretty hands-on and being able to keep the pressure onto this King Arthur, but once he hits that level 5, gets that Glad Shield online, I wonder if we'll see a bit more rotation coming through from FinoK in the dual lane though. Zap and Neilmar trying to keep the pressure rolling in this lane with Chernobog and Yamoja. They will have a little bit more effective wave clear than that of the Rama and the Bacchus in this one.
And now that PBM's back on this Bacchus, his CC is going to be a lot easier to land. He's going to be able to get aggressive like we saw him try to on that Cerberus last game. He's not going to have to contend with that CC immunity that Hell was able to bring. I like the pickup. I like everything that I'm seeing here. I'm just concerned about how well Ghost is going to be able to leverage this front line. Twig, again, not playing a long-range god. He's going to have to get in the faces of PK to find his damage. Kraken, hugely choreographed damage. Aphrodite should be able to immune it for herself or whoever else is the target of that. I'm worried. I'm worried about the frontline potential for Ghost Gaming. If Final K is able to rotate out early and put his team in the lead, Ghost is going to have to run with it and find some objectives because PK's late game draft is absolutely dominant. Zapman on his Chernobog has one of the best stims of any hunter. Neilma has shown us that even though he's going a mainly support build, that he can blow up just about anyone given the right opportunity.
Got him! Great pick from Sam for Soccer. A great play, honestly, from the cameraman, Doug there. Just kept an eye on that solo lane the entire time. I was watching the health bars there, and I was kind of like, Scary's getting a little bit low for my liking. However, mid lane looks like Twig's also getting a bit low now as Cuvo Fred links up with Paul for a second or two there to get some pressure going. Did cost Cuvo his ultimate in doing so, but Twig was forced to use the sprint that he picked up this game. We not really touched on that heavenly agility pickup so far, Myth. How do you feel about going for the agility over an Aegis or a Beads here for Poseidon?
It makes marginal sense, right? He's not worried about the huge damage potential out of an enemy mage. He doesn't have something like a Kraken that he needs to Aegis. The CC potential from PK is strong, but it's conditional CC. Yamoja stun's very easily avoidable if you have high movement speed, and that's exactly what Poseidon does have. I like it. Heavenly's going to allow him to reposition these fights, maybe weave in and out of engagements in the early game, avoid early pressure from this Nike. It's a decent pickup, but it does leave him open. If Nike does find a dunk, if there's any sort of kiss stun with any follow-up from PK, this Poseidon should be able to get blown up.
Man, look at the respect that Fine OK's getting over here. Cuvo Fred was doing the blue buff and fell back. Now Neilmar's had to come over too to release some pressure. Sam for Soccer turning up here as well, looking for a cheeky steal. Won't be found here. Scary will get his blue buff as now Twig also shows his face. Paul just been back from base, now has Shoes of Focus online. And it looks like he's going for the pretty much standard mid lane build we've seen a little bit more of here, whereas Twig could be going for that Chronos Pendant, run a Tahui Doomorb option. We'll see where that ends up going.
With this early lifesteal boost pickup from Twig, Doomorb likely, maybe some additional lifesteal out of Bancrofts. He could even elect to go this auto-attack-centric Poseidon build and really elevate Ghost Gaming's ability to blow up and burn these objectives. Not only is Poseidon going to have a fantastic confirm tool, but if he does decide to go towards this lifesteal / auto-attack-centric build, he should be able to burn objectives himself. He should be able to solo out Gold 3 the second he gets additional lifesteal online.
Cuvo Fred playing aggressive. Nobody's got Mike with him, but there's another Rivers Rebuke out from Neil Marr. And Neil will be fine for the time being. He'll just keep Twig and Sam at bay as he walks back out of the fray there. Nothing really comes of it other than Neil's ultimate being used. And I think the reason I was bringing up Twig's build there with the Doom Mob is because, well, if you're going for Heavenly Agility anyway, you're looking at mobility more than anything else, right? And Doom Mob is going to give you even more mobility in the early game. And maybe, you know, some of those daggers you were talking about, some of those movement speed trident builds that we've seen on Poseidons before.
It's certainly a way to deal with the aggression that PK's comp should have come late game. Cuvo and Scary D come to mind for people that Twig's going to have to really be concerned about. Additional movement speed means that he should be able to avoid the World Serpent. He should be able to get out of range of this Nike if he does look for the dive there. But even then, there's so much damage and so much potential to fight that Twig's got to be concerned. I expect likely second active will be a Beads, maybe an Aegis. Preferably, truthfully, the Aegis, because Paul's damage of the late is rough.
Scary D nearly got solo by Fine OK. Cuvo Fred turns up there and Fine OK made a bit enough more than he can chew. The damage output really from Scary wasn't good enough, and Fine OK might just kill him for doing that. No! Cuvo Fred to the rescue, and Scary D survives. Ghost Gaming were trying to rotate into support, but they get zoned out by Paul and Neil for a second or two. They will at least maybe be able to find this blue buff. And now the pressure's back onto them as Cuvo Fred wrapping around the back. Sam's ultimate about to wear off, but he should be able to dash away. Leap off the mark, and the Rivers Rebuke didn't catch him. So Sam turns around and gets aggressive. Crack it out for a Twig. Does hit onto Neil Marr. Not enough damage just yet to really make a dent in the health bar. And actually Mike there blinking away, a little bit worried about Cuvo Fred wrapping back round.
I think Mike saw that Scary D was getting a little bit Zapman-esque, one more wave at that low health bar. He wanted to blink in, see if he could find that dunk to see if he can confirm himself the kill. Fortunately for Scary, he backs off just in time to avoid it. That blink getting torn off of Mike just for that little bit of greed there is gonna be huge. Now if PK decide to group up around that Gold Fury, there's no easy engage potential for Ghost Gaming. They could choose to exploit it, or they could use this time to safely farm up, not worry about PBM looking for these long range engagements, and just make sure that Paul makes his way into the late game safely.
Fine, okay, he's just trying to manhandle this lane, but credit where it's due to Scary D. He's holding his own. He's got a bit of support in doing so, but he's still keeping pace at level 9 alongside him. So at 8 minutes 30, it's still anyone's game. Do you want to turn back towards Captain Twig's build for a second? Does look like he's gone for that Doom Orb, but we did see his leveling a little bit earlier on. He had 3 points in his Whirlpool and had already been putting points into his Trident. So at that point in time, he had 20% movement speed. Now he's got 4 points in the Whirlpool. So with that Trident being at rank 3, he's getting 20% movement speed when he procs this one, and the cooldown comes down as well. So he's definitely looking for the Zoom Zoom Poseidon option, which, I'll be honest, in the old days of jungle Poseidons being so prevalent, it was so much fun to see, but we're starting to see more of it this year too in terms of jungle pressure.
But now Twig's going to be lacking on burst potential. His 1 is going to be only rank 1 for the foreseeable future. This Kraken hasn't been huge just yet.
Well, there's a Kraken, and it does hit too, but it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Does set up a kill on Neil Moore, though, is fine. Okay, wraps around the back. Paul could be next. He goes down to Sam for Soccer and the big baby, but Scary D takes out Twig for his discretions. Nice ultimate from Fine, okay, towards Cuvo Fred. Not really enough damage to bring him down, though. Cuvo Fred doesn't have his ultimate available anymore. And Sam and Fine, okay, and Scary D and Cuvo have to leave it, but a mud fight in the dual lane. Yes, boys, go at it. Oh, he got him out of the wall. He poked him with that last shot. Beautiful roll away. And just look at how both those hunters use their escapes at exactly the same time. I love watching Panda and Zap fight, man. They've been doing it for years since season 1, and it's always cool to see.
Man, that might have been the manliest engagement we've seen out of the long lane just yet. The dashes were used at the same time, but Panda Cat uses his effectively to roll out of the danger of Zapman's dash. If Zapman uses his to actually land the damage, Panda Cat falls there. Zap gets a little bit aggressive, trying to dash back in out of the wall towards Panda Cat. Panda says, no sir, clotheslines him with that third ability arrow. I mean, that's a clean fight from both squads. One misplay changes the outcome completely.
Oh. Zap wants some more, and Panda's not liking it, but he's got support from Mike, and Zap gets baited into a fight he didn't want to really take. Mike's rotation pays dividends, and Zapman falls down twice in quick succession. That wasn't a solo kill, though. That was just good rotations at a PBM, and now they might be able to actually get a bit of pressure on this tier 1 tower on the left-hand side. Everyone on PK on the other side of the map, but instead they're going to fall back to base a little bit worried about a rotation that wasn't really coming for a second or two.
That's a huge swing in that long lane. That secondary kill is going to come in clutch. They were relatively even at the time of that first 1v1 engagement. Now Panda Cat has a 2-level lead. Balance Blade already coming online. His damage output is going to be so high, and he should be able to relatively safe farm this lane or continue to fight Zapman on cooldown. This might force Neil into sitting into that long lane a little bit longer to make sure that Zap isn't the target of continued aggression. But I can hear Zap's comms right now. He's not cool, bro. We were 1v1ing extremely Zapman voice. Panda Cat, I don't think, is deterred even a little bit.
I'd feel sorry for Zap if it wasn't for the fact his ultimate to get him back to that lane there gave vision of the entire team. So he would have seen Mike was on the way, and he still went for the 1v1. It's given Panda now a 2-level lead in this lane, and fully stacked Devourer's Gauntlets, which will make an impact in those trades a little bit more so, especially with Zap being about, well, around 20 behind where he needs to be. Cuvo Fred takes a bit more poke than bargain for. Good use of the ultimate to avoid some damage, and Neil traps in 3. Kraken out from Twig, didn't really do much. Neil got some great damage off on his own, but just no backup to follow up around. PK had a window there. I just don't think they realized it. They didn't have the damage dealers around to make an impact.
Man, Neil almost single-handedly kills 2 members alone. That's got to feel bad. Hey, boys, where you at? Help me out a little bit. They're all quarter health. Unfortunately, no one on the side of PK seemed to got that memo. Zapman was clearing out the purple buff. Cubo was getting forced out immediately from all that damage. Just a bit of an unfortunate timing there for PK, but Ghost do a good job of responding well and immediately disengaging on the tail end. Now they have to be worried about the Gold Fury, Pittsburgh Knights that is, as Ghost has a 3,000 gold lead.
Well, at the moment, they're just worried a little bit, PK, about their own blue buff on this right-hand side, and Scary D does have it, but he's lost a chunk of health for making sure he secures that for himself. And yeah, Gold Fury could be the next attention spot as we tune into Cuvo Fred, who's still level 11, a little bit behind of that of Sam for Soccer at the moment. Both these junglers have been a lot more involved this game. Sam's done a good job of keeping pace and finds himself at 3-0-1 so far.
I like what Scary D's doing with this build here. I halfway expected him to go towards that Ducky build that we saw yesterday with the additional aggression, Spear of Deso, trying to get all this damage online, Ethereal Staff, stuff like that. Instead, he's going a little bit tankier, a little bruisier, because he wants to be that frontline presence for his team. His support being Yamoja means that she's not going to be able to dive the backline nearly as efficiently, so instead he decides Breastplate of Valor, Jade Emperor's Helm, I'm going to be in the backline disrupting, while Yamoja peels out the backline, finds the healing, maybe separates them with an ultimate.
I think that's the difference that you see there as well, Myth, right? Between what the matchup and situation of a game is. I think there's a lot of flexibility for pretty much all roles to mess with their builds based on what's going on. Gold Fury getting very low from Ghost Gaming, though. That Kraken will secure, nicely timed. And Pittsburgh Knights give away a free Fury there, which just continues to grow Ghost Gaming's lead a little bit more so. Final case starting to rotate towards mid. This is Ghost answering back to what PK did last game, I feel like. A much better situation for them as it stands. But we've not seen Paul get involved just yet so far in this Aphrodite. Winged Blade picked up from him, so mobility there, sure. But not a whole ton of damage coming out from this Afro so far.
It should help him out a lot, especially considering how many slows Ghost Gaming has. So Mana slow, Rom slow, all these things that he can now avoid just by holding W. It's been pretty cool so far to see that this game is almost a direct mirror of last match. Last game we saw Scary D rotating out early and putting his team ahead. This time it's FineOK doing the exact same and abusing the fact that Scary's on a Guardian. He can't rotate nearly as early on. So what are Ghosts going to do? Exploit that and take fights all throughout the enemy jungle.
I think the biggest thing, though, is Panda Cat's going unchecked in this lane now. Still a 2-level lead, but Zapman going to try and make a difference on this right-hand side. Swoops on in towards FineOK, some decent damage, not enough to kill him just yet. Cuvo Fred wrapping round, blinks early, drops the ultimate, but FineOK juggles him to the sky. And with Sam Pisaka blinking to the back, it's Zap under pressure, and Zap's going to run back to the tower. Now Paul in the fray on this Aphrodite. Can't do a whole ton. Meanwhile, left-hand side, Panda Cat gets a free tier 1. Neilmar can't shut that one down. And so a bit more gold found for Ghost Gaming.
Ghost is playing the map incredibly well right now, splitting it up. They take the Gold Furies, they shift their focus towards the short lane because they know there's no threat of the neutral objective falling. Fortunately for PK, nothing really comes of it, barring that one tier 1 tower in the long lane, which honestly should help Zapman out a bit here. Now that that tier 1's down, he can freeze the tower at his tier 2.
Scary D could die here. He's got no ultimate to escape. FineOK still spinning, but Zap's pressure could be enough to find the kill. But the boys of Ghost are alongside him. Zap's health bar getting lower, but with the rotation now coming out from Cuvo Fred 2, Ghosts have to fall back. Everybody's alive for now. Panda Cat in mid lane, meanwhile, is still once again farming with Neilmar, who's now become a farmer, as Zap's been the one rotating more now around this map, trying to make an impact.
Zap gets killed twice in lane and never goes back. Name a more iconic duo than that. Now Neilmar has the sole responsibility of locking down that lane, and it seems like he doesn't want to go back over there either.
Yeah, Zap a little bit disrespectful there. Forced to use his Aegis defensively, as he didn't really get a chance to get any sustained back up. I think he was really hoping for Neil or Paul to top him up in health bars there for a moment or two. But Pyromancer not being looked at just yet. Very, very quick game, though. I mean, 16.5 minutes in, I've got tier 1 towers down in left and right-hand lane, and all teams are already grouping up as 5 already. Very interesting to see where this pressure comes from. Looks like we might see Ghost attempt a Pyro now. Panda Cat has a full stacked Rage online. Oh my goodness, Zap is that far behind right now that there's a whole item on Panda Cat. I know Zap's not been back to base just yet, so I think he's got a bit of gold in hand. But this is a huge advantage and a power spike for Ghost Gaming here.
If Ghost can find any sort of fight to get these stacks online on Panda Cat just a little bit quicker than Zap can get his crit online, that power spike that's already huge, having this entire item over Zap, is only going to be further expanded upon. That additional crit chance getting him up there. The damage output is so high from Panda now that maybe his healing from Paul could be counteracted just a little bit if he's able to find these high priority targets in the backline. And he should be able to, because the front line of Ghost Gaming is so potent. King Arthur, Vamana, Bacchus, all going to be diving deep once these 5-on-5 fights start to really kick off. Panda Cat should have so much space to play around.
It's a good point. I mean, he's also got that ultimate to buy a second too, right? And snipe the long distance targets if his carries go in too deep. But not only that, if he gets pressured, he can take to the sky too. And then you're looking at Poseidon, who's gone for the more mobility with that sprint that we mentioned in the Doom Orb. So if Twig's going to zoom around these battlefields, it's going to be hard to lock him down too. The backline of Ghost are very much focused on self-survival, I feel like. So it allows the front line to go in very deep and look to pick some of these targets. Still only 9 kills in this game though. A little bit lower than what we saw previously in Game 1. But a good answer from Ghost Gaming based off what we saw out of PK in that first game. But where can they find more of a lead now? A bit trickier with these Tier 1 towers being down on the left and right-hand side. The Fury's about to spawn, though. Will be an Oni Fury at that. This could be a big one for both teams to make sure they don't give it away for free.
Only 9 kills, but 5,000 gold is what's separating these two squads 18 minutes into the game. And who's the first one on the scene to this Oni Fury? You already know who it is. It's Ghost Gaming. They're trying to push this lead even further. And the second that PK step up, I imagine Ghost will immediately reset and try and chase out the fight.
No panic from Paul there whatsoever. Early ultimate coming out from Scary D. He got pressured on the backside. Think he took more damage than bargained for from Panda Cat, who is swinging for the fences already, I will say. Fury now started up, knowing Scary D's ultimate is down. Teleport also down for Scary. He won't be in this fray. Ghost get the Fury, and Neil Marr is caught off on this left-hand side. He does have Paul's support, though, of Sustain, which is making it difficult for Fine OK to find that pick. But Ghost are keeping the pressure going and rolling here on the left. Don't have the minions with them yet to look at a Tier 2 tower, but the job was done for the most part from Ghost. Get him, force an ultimate on Scary D, and take an Oni Fury.
Taking Honor Fury. Now they can group up on mid. If PK are slow on the response, this could be another Tier 1 tower falling here. That Bastion and safety in mid is such a huge deal for any objective defense. If you go to gold free, oftentimes if you start losing a fight, you immediately start running towards your mid lane Tier 1. If that's no longer available, the same could be said if Fire Giant gets started up. And PK's got a draft that is really in need of places to back up to because they want the prolonged engagement.
Well, there was an Aegis there for Scary D to say hello to the Kraken and meet each other, but after that, that was still his life done for. That extra damage that you take through the passive of Jormungandr really starts to hurt these days if you get caught like that. Fire Giant started by Ghost, but Neil Marr bought a bit of time to get Paul and Cuvo Fred into the fray alongside Zapman. Rivers rebuke from Neil hits too, but no one's there to follow up. Cuvo Fred was holding on to Captain Twig, who tried a way to live again. Did cost him his heavenly agility though. Neil Marr, meanwhile, who was buying time against 2, has now been left alone too long, and Sampa Soccer gets the kill. Snipes onto Zapman, cancelled out by the ultimate from Paul, but Paul is out of mana, Zap is out of health. Cuvo Fred will at least take down Fine OK, but he'll fall down to Sampa Soccer. Ghost Gaming are looking great in game number 2.
Fantastic engagement. The dive tried to be attempted by PK onto Captain Twig there, but immediately he leverages this huge amount of movement speed that Doom affords him, that his second ability affords him, and just zooms right on out of dodge, resets the fight, allows Ghost Gaming to regroup and then circle back towards that dive that was going his way, effectively collapsing on the team there and getting a clean engagement, 4 for 1 in favor of Ghost. They aren't able to quite engage on that Fire Giant and get it safely because Scary D's already back alive. But I don't think Ghost is too concerned about it. They can just regroup again, spend up the gold that they got from that Tier 1 tower in mid and Gold Fury off the back of this 4 for 1 engagement, and then regroup on Fire, get ward dominance, and force the exact same engagement.
I was going to mention a little bit about the anti-heal Ghost had picked, or the lack of it a little bit. We saw a Divine Ruin and a Cursed Dunk from Mike picked up there, but now we've just seen that Toxic Blade picked up by Sam for Soccer too, so a little bit more of that in the build. Panda Cat looks like he's working towards a little bit more crit in this one as well. And PK are definitely on the back foot here. I'm just a little bit concerned about their damage output more than anything else here, if I'm honest, Mifflin, because Paul's build, very survivable, sure. You know, Winged Blade, Breastplate of Valor, he's tanky. He's just not going to do a ton of damage. And with Zap being behind already, their damage output is relatively low in this composition now.
Zap's down 3 stacks on Rage, and again, another entire item inside of Wind Demon. The damage output is certainly lacking, and Aphrodite hasn't been the target of aggression because he's been playing so far back. Ghost Gaming's been completely happy to just engage on literally anyone besides Paul and still somehow are able to find the kills with this huge lead that they've established. This defensive build is really coming back to bite him. Maybe it's the true determining factor in deciding for Ghost Gaming that maybe we don't want to look for him in the fights, but even then, the damage output is lacking. Back off normally is a huge burst potential ability. You could link on to maybe Scary or Cuvo and have them dive the backline, but now with Breastplate of Valor and Winged Blade online, back off is likely hitting people for about 300 or 400 damage at this point, which is actually negligible when you have such a huge lead. They need something here. When you're behind, defense is almost always less valuable because you don't have any way to come back, and the enemy team's already stacking their own damage, so your defense means even less then. Normally you would see, if anyone falls behind, they immediately start looking for these high-priority damage output items, so that they might be able to make some sort of miraculous burst play to turn a team fight.
Fire Giant goes down to Ghost. Kraken was used to secure. A little bit late from Scary D getting in the pit there to secure and try and cause a problem. But look at the amount of damage Knights are doing. The Clump of Death came online. And now PK are back in action against the Fire Giant team of Ghost. But Sam for Big Baby Soccer just slapped two of a Broly. And they fall down in seconds. Paul and Zap out of the fray. They are the damage dealers. Panda Cat crits Cuvo Fred. And now Scary D's got nothing left. Neither does Neil Marr. Fire Giant goes to Ghost. The fight after the fact started well for PK, but you just saw how good Ghost have played this game. Great answer back from Ghost Gaming after that Game 1 performance from PK. We're looking great for a Game 3 here, man.
30 seconds left on a spawn, 4 members strong, one of them being the ADC here. They might be able to game, and I think that's likely the call going forward. Scary D a little bit lacking on damage, only really has Void Stone and his boots for the main damage output for him. There's not much that he can do to stop this push. He might be able to kill Final K if they do decide to move in, but instead they back off, play it slowly. No mistakes to be had here. Only 10 seconds left on the respawns for PK. I like the call to back up. Spend out your gold, regroup, maybe even go towards this Gold Fury, strip away your jungle buffs, get ready, and start the siege again on these tier 2s.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's just wise. I mean, you could try and end the game, but if you make a mistake there against PK, you saw that Fire Giant fight a little bit. PK got a pretty good response off at the beginning of that. They just didn't have the follow-through damage to pick up the kills. Left-hand side, though, Zap was looking for a Gold Fury. Neil's there with him now, but he's under a lot of pressure, and his ultimate's not available. Relics only, Aegis is up. Final K trapped in the River's Rebuke this time round. Pulled back in by the Riptide. Scary wrapping around the back. Pick on Final K could be on, but a pick on Zap ban is confirmed. Divine for Sam for Soccer. What a turnaround game for him as well, who struggled in the last one. Ghost Gaming find a pick on Zap. Fire minions pouring down the right. They can look for the Fury to take this final tier 2 tower on the left-hand side after.
That was an actual 2v5 engagement. Sam and Final K were really the only ones there that were able to deal any damage to PK. We saw the rest of Ghost was creeping up towards the tail end of that engagement, but Sam was already done. He already got his food. Zapman's already in the grave. The Gold Fury falls. Tier 2 should go down uncontested in this long lane. I don't imagine PK are comfortable fighting without Zapman, as he is one of the main sources of damage for his team. He's going a bit of a hybrid build here, getting early on with a Rage, and then immediately going more Tank Buster with his Titan's Bane, instead of electing for additional crit, which makes sense. This front line from Ghost Gaming has been absolutely crippling in every single engagement, but it might be a little too late. The second tier 2 falls in mid. Ghost Gaming now knocking on the door of the Titan.
Yeah, I think they might just wait for those fire minions to pour down right here. I will say, looking at Ghost Gaming though, I really do like Captain Twig being on more utility mages than just raw damage. I think the times like Zeus when we saw him there, I feel like we get more out of Twig. He's so much more of a team player and will do what's good for the team to give him the utility options that can support a lot of the time. The likes of Poseidon, just like that. The Krakens, for the right reasons, the Whirlpools too. And the extra mobility helps him out a little bit on some of the positioning. Now a bit of a split difference for Ghost though. They're going to have a bit of a hover situation of 2 in mid, 3 on left. Scary, Zap and Neil try to contest with the damage dealers, but that leaves Paul, who's tanky enough to hold on for now, needing some support. Neil and Cuvo Fred alongside him. Bit of a split difference though. Mid Phoenix goes down. A nice pickup by Sam and Fine OK there, and that gives them the opportunity to rotate round to the left-hand side. Scary uses the ultimate early on as Sam looking towards the Titan a little bit. Neil Marr pushed out a little bit too far for his own liking. Blinking from Cuvo, trying to kill Panda Cat. big pick on Panda. That could slow down the end of the game without having that Hunter around. But if Sam can pick this Paul, it could cause some problems there. Swooping in goes Zapman, but Sam slips the noose. Can't slip away long enough, however. And the 3 members of PK push out of their base. But look at the Titan myth. It's so low, they can't really go too far here. Pick for Zapman. Pick in response maybe for Fine-OK. No, Zap gets himself a triple kill. PK, hold on to this game.
50 seconds on the nearest respawn for Ghost Gaming. There's really nothing PK can do here except for catch their breath for a split moment, push out these waves, maybe pick up a tier 1 tower if they decide to, and then they have to back up and reset the defense. Their right Phoenix should come back online, but that mid Phoenix is going to be down for a little while. Sam gets a little bit overzealous with his dive there. Immediately he forces out Cuvo's ult, he gets the mid Phoenix, and instead of regrouping with his team, he keeps diving deep on the backline. He forces Zapman back into the fountain, but what is Zap going to do? He just ults to the actual team fight and plays around his squad while Sam is caught in no man's land in the enemy Titan room. Just a little bit over-aggressive, I'd say, but still, Ghost Gaming with the lead that they've established, it's not a big deal. They've got some room to play with.
It's definitely not, but I think that's something that Ghost was talking about. Mike in his interview, you know, he said, we've made a couple of mistakes here and there that, you know, it takes time to really think about. Looking for a steal! No,
oh,
okay,
boy!
Yeah, okay. And the last spam to Panda, you go. What a nice little play coming out there. PK, win a team fight on the defensive, get a Phoenix back up, but a nice sniper Panda. Honestly, for a second, I did not think that. It was the first shot as well, which isn't the most damaging one, if I'm honest. Just well-timed from Panda Cat. And people forget how useful Rama can be around objectives. Good to see him back in action, though. I'm not going to lie.
That's gotta be a morale crusher right there. You win a team fight, you get your right Phoenix back online, you're burning away the Fire Giant, you don't know anyone's coming your way, and then all of a sudden Astral Barrage slams in, steals it away from you, all your momentum stripped away there. What was gonna be just about 10,000, 15,000 gold at the 29-minute mark, which is absolutely huge, by the way. And now you have Fire Giant to combat it, which I usually equate to around 10,000 gold. Now it's 15,000 gold and Fire Giant and your mid Phoenix is down. What are you going to do about that, PK? You're going to have to regroup and go for another fantastic defense. It's certainly not going to be easy, and I doubt Sam makes the same mistake.
Lovely Twig actually gets the pressure on Scary D there. Caught him lurking in the wall. It's just a little bit too long. Panda Cat, though, taking a ton of damage from Cuvo Fred and may just fall down through a Fire Giant. Cuvo gets him and picks him up, but Zapman goes down in trade. Neil Moore now wrapped on by Fine-OK, Captain Twig, and the blinking from Sam for Soccer. That could just be the game for me. With Panda Cat not being alive, though, it may slow them down, but this pick on Cuvo Fred's important. He's trying his best to juke around, but now it's just Paul and Scary D left alive. Paul sure has his ultimate available here. Scary D, different story. And this could all just come back to that little Fire Giant steal from Panda Cat on the end of this game here.
30 seconds on the nearest respawn. Paul still has his ultimate available, but the damage output from Scary is incredibly low, as is the damage from Paul as he goes this more utility build. That Titan's burning quick.
Oh, yeah, it is. But they're going to hunt the kills down. First of all, Sam is. He's looking for that 11-1 scoreline instead. The game will end 11-19. Ghost Gaming have tied up the series here today against Pittsburgh 9. Great performance from them, honestly. Especially after how well PK played game 1. That was a fantastic answer back from Ghost.
A convincing game 1 for PK turns into a convincing game 2 for Ghost Gaming, and they just play the map incredibly well in the early game to establish a lead. They play around the solo lane very well. He rotates out to set up for the mid lane fight. Paul gets forced into building utility early on, so they can't really use that huge burst healing. There's no damage output from the Aphrodite. A lot of what PK's roster was meant to do there got just completely shut out due to Ghost Gaming's incredibly potent early game.
Yeah, great performance from Ghost, though. It's time to get it back to the desk because we're going to get ready for a game 3 now.
That's right, we're going to be getting ready for game 3. But before we get into that, chat, do you see all this nerd stuff that I have around me? There's a lot of it because, well, I'm a man-child when it comes down to it. But I got it by saving money all around. And in places that you might not recognize, or maybe you should, like using code SMITEMAX to get $50 off of your own Maxnomic chair. To make sure that you're comfortable while we're all sitting around at home, just go to needforseat.com right now, put your name, your logo, and get your chair. But as was mentioned, we're going to be going into a Game 3. But Aggro, we have to look at Game 2 and a lot of the fun stuff that happened throughout all of there. And I think the most notable one is that in Game 1, Sam for Soccer who? And in Game 2, oh yeah, Sam for Soccer, that guy.
Yeah, the reigning world's MVP, by the way. Sam got off to a great start in Game 1 and then was derailed pretty quickly. There was no derailing this Vamana this time around. Sino's sphere of influence among the SPL continues to grow as we had the Nike versus Vamana matchup. And Sam really just made absolute havoc in the backline of the Pittsburgh Knights. I was concerned about what Twig was going to be able to do this game. I think that through the first half of this game, he did really struggle finding effective Krakens because of that ultimate coming out from Paul. But the way that Panda Cat played in this game put so much more pressure on Paul and of the entire front line of PK that it opened the door for Twig to be more effective later on. But Panda really had a phenomenal game. I thought he had a great Game 1 as well. This ROM pick now is one that I think you have to look to take away from Ghost Gaming, because as it stands, letting Panda get this pick has just been too impactful. Not only is he dominating in the lane, he solo zap in both games, and then he steals the Fire Giant with that incredible snipe. I mean, this pick is just looking really potent right now for Panda.
That's one of those, in terms of maybe game-changing, it didn't necessarily do anything crazy. It just made sure that the end state for Ghost Gaming was there. But that's definitely the last nail in the coffin, right? You go in, you've got this nice lead, a huge fight finally for the Knights, and Panda seals it, not with the third shot like we're maybe used to seeing, not even with the second shot that has happened occasionally. The first shot out of that ultimate comes through, and I think it's just some of the potency that we're getting to see finally from Rom being available in these picks. But, 5, 2, and 6 looks pretty good. I'm excited to see what his damage is. It's just hard to overlook the fact that Sam was 10, 1, and 4. I mean, you said World's MVP. This was one of those games that I think shows it more than anything. That big baby was just so potent in a lot of those fights. And like you said, maybe a key for Twig, even for Panda Cat in the late game, to kind of come in and take this game by storm the way they did.
And don't forget, the entire early game was really ran by Fine OK on this King Arthur. Scary on the Guardian this time around as opposed to Fine, who was on at Game 1. And Fine really brought a whole lot of pressure to that side of the map. Sam was there consistently. All of PK was there consistently. But Fine really controlled that side of the map very, very effectively and was really a big reason why they were able to transition into this late game very effectively. So now I think if you're on PK, I'm looking to do two things. And it's number one, take Panda Cat off of this ROM. And number two, give Scary D something that can actually affect that solo side fight and not just wait for late game like Yorm does.
Yeah, it's one of the things, we've got to see a lot of picks after Game 1 that were very obvious. Hey, get away from that. Yorm maybe falls into that category for Game 2, but nothing maybe as outstanding as that Zeus was in Game 1. But like you said, maybe something that can give Scary D that control that we've grown so accustomed to and so used to seeing out of them. But, with everything that has been going forward, I think it is very fitting that these two teams once again go back to a game number 3. What better way to kick it off than with picks and bans to find out what they're going to change and what they're going to try and lock down for this one. Hercules has been kind of the mainstay here for the Knights' first ban. Do you think it's going to go anywhere?
No, I don't think so. I think we'll see another Hercules ban here by PK. A little surprised that PK elects to stay in first pick. I think that it makes it pretty clear that they want to keep getting Yamoja. I think that if they would have gone second pick, you put Ghost in a position where it's pretty hard for them to first pick ROM, and then you get it on the back end like Ghost has been doing basically all set long, a pick plus ROM right off the top. But PK decides they want to go first pick, which tells me that they think Neil on this Yamoja is a key part of them winning Game 3.
Well, it didn't maybe do as much in Game 2 that they would have hoped for, but in Game 1, that was maybe some of the biggest lockdown that we've gotten to see out of a Yamoja, maybe period, this phase. So a lot of good reason to have that one come through for them, but it's the Uller, the Hell, staying consistent here for Ghost Gaming. If you want to run it back, I can't remember exactly what it was the Knights had last, but I do remember the Kamazots over there on the other side for Ghost. And, well, hey, King Arthur going to be taken off the board here, which is maybe something to help Scary D control that lane. You said take him off the Yorm and maybe get rid of that King Arthur. Does that help him out maybe in getting control?
It does, but now this leaves open Raijin, which was that ban there for PK, and now PK is thinking, well, do we want Yamoja? Ghost is going to take Raijin Rom almost certainly here, right? I mean, that has got to be their top 2 picks. And it gives you priority for Scary in that short lane. It gives you priority in the jungle. But I feel like Ghost got pretty much exactly what they wanted in these top 2 if they do go with that Raijin and the Rom together.
Well, hey, finally, the Raijin will be locked in there for Ghost Gaming, something that we haven't gotten to see today as of yet, and well, there's a decent chance Twig might be able to show us why. Rom has already been doing incredibly well, so not surprising to see Panda Cat go back to that. But the Umoja having the mixed success, do you personally feel that it's worth this first pick, or is that something that maybe you could flex around as the Knights and afford to put Neil maybe somewhere else?
It's a good question. I think it is worth the first pick, though, because Umoja is one of those gods that can do things that no other god does. This ability to keep people alive in late game team fights between the healing and the shielding, River's Rebuke being so disruptive. I think that even if you are knowingly giving Raijin Ram over to the other side, it's worth the Umoja selection, especially when you're going to be able to get Merlin Nike on top of that. The fact that Fred gets Nike all 3 games of the set is absolutely crazy to me because he's looked so good on it for the most part with that pick this year. I think that despite what is a very strong top 2 here for Ghost, PK get a strong top 3 to answer back. So I think both teams likely pretty happy with where they are draft-wise up until this point.
Yeah, I would argue running down the tier list right now, they're going to be incredibly happy on the side of Knights. I mean, I can think of at least 4 teams in the SBL that would kill for that first 3 every game they played. So being able to get that will make them happy. The RDO, though, something that Ghost has been pulling out, and maybe kind of the Ghost Gaming special, it feels like. Not a lot of teams willing to put her out there. The Hu Yi banned out. Vamana going to be taken away, more notably, I would argue, from Sam than I think taken out of the solo lane there. But with the Amaterasu, there's still some shots being fired over towards Scary D. Now, RDO has been, I would argue, in flux. When she first came in, she used to be the solo laner, but do you expect to see her over there, or is this a support through and through?
I think she's a support pick these days, and I think that that's going to be there for PBM to try and lock down this Riptide mobility from Umoja. It's a bit of a risk because, again, you also get walled in by that River's Rebuke, but I think that I'd be surprised to see RDO over there in the solo lane. I think Ghost is going to save this last pick for Fine OK and let him get something he's comfortable with in a counter matchup.
Yeah, a nice, comfortable counter matchup. But the Kali that comes through for Sam, maybe not something that immediately jumps into my head when I think Sam for soccer. I think Cherio maybe brings out the Kali in my brain a little bit faster. But, man, if you're looking for late-game hyper carry, not a lot of people can do it better than the Kali that's going to be able to come through. And honestly, putting Sam on a late-game hyper carry, that's usually a good call. The Osiris there for some anti-heal. And the Artemis being hovered. But the standard Hachiman there for Zapman. If it had gone Artemis, it would have been an interesting lane more than anything. But this feels pretty safe over there for Zap.
Yeah, I actually think Artemis would have been really interesting. She recently got a buff. Zap was tweeting that he liked her a lot. And it's a really bad matchup against RDO because she just roots you and you have to use something in response. But it's a really good matchup against Rom because as soon as he goes up into the air, you just walk right underneath him and trap where he's landing. And there's not a whole lot of counterplay to that. The Baron pick, a la Variety, this is the Variety special, is particularly up against Umoja. I believe Ghost was on the receiving end of that pick, and Mike really felt the pain of that. So I like them adapting it for themselves and bringing it onto their side.
And it's going to be interesting to see if they can pilot it as well as it's been piloted against them. The Baron Samedi may be the key to making this one work out alongside that Kali. A lot of maybe iffy picks for Ghost, but honestly running the tier list didn't exactly work for them in Game 1. Now they're looking to try and run it back and get a reverse sweep. Let's see if the Knights can take it or if Ghost are going to find this one in a 2-1.
Yeah, let's see what happens here, because this matchup between the two, honestly, well, early on, look at this little grouping from PK. Myth joining me again, though, and we're tied up at 1-1. It's definitely 2 teams that I love to watch, honestly. Sure, they've both made changes in the jungle departments, but Myth, these 2 teams just, for some reason, for my liking, they square up so well against each other.
They have a lot of similarities in play style. They're both incredibly aggressive. They're able to trade off on engagements. If PK dives deep onto the back line of Ghost Gaming inside their back camps, you know Ghost Gaming is going to either reflect it, respawn, and then they'll try the same thing on the enemy team. And it's so back and forth. And I think that creates some really compelling SMITE gameplay.
Well, both dual lanes going to get their purples. No invasions this time round. Support coming out for Carly Sanfasaka. Over to the right side to help out Fine OK with that blue buff. Talking about that Carly more, a little bit of a different playstyle then going to come through from Sam. Probably look to farm up a little bit more in the early game. Do you expect here, Myth, with this Carly, trying to get, get to that chins level to shred down some of these frontliners?
Callie's a late game hyper carry through and through. She can look for some early pressure. The stun damage combo is really high, especially around level 4. But then again, Callie only really starts to hit her stride once she gets that hasten online, once that kin size comes online. Then she can start to look to tank bust the enemy team, be that 1v5 powerhouse that we really expect to see out of Callie. A slower early game from Sam, I think is to be expected here.
Well, small little pinch there from PK early on, looking towards that red buff area. Won't find it there this time round, but at the moment we'll see how this one continues as the farming goes on. Now, I'm excited to see Hachiman on this Hunter this time round. I'm picking up this one to see how Hachi does against Rom. It's more 2 auto-attack focused characters more than anything else here. And with that now, we're going to see exactly how this goes. Mifflin has left me. He's left the building. That's okay. We've been having a few weird issues today. So back to solo casting for me it is. Polar Bear Mike at level 2 right now has the Guardian's Blessing online. Did go with a blink option at the beginning of this game too. So just keep an eye out on Polar Bear Mike looking for those blink stuns with the RTO bear form that we'll see a little bit more. And he'll actually have to rely on that quite a bit this game, I would say, with this composition going on from them, because their engage is a little bit lackluster. But Mike under pressure here as Cuvo, Fred, and Zapman and Neil get all in. The bear falls in the laning phase, and everyone probably heard that scream there between the two of them. And that's a first blood pickup. It goes the way of Cuvo Fred, so that'll give him a little bit more bonus gold. Hits up at first blood. Miff, you here now?
Oh yeah, I'm back. We had a little bit of technical issues there, but I do not miss out on that first blood. Yeah, audio getting shut down in the early game is huge. It's huge. Now that aggression that is so signature of that god can be slowed down a little bit. Going for these deep dives onto the back line is going to be a lot harder to perform if you're already behind at that 3-minute mark. I imagine we see PBM try and buckle down, try and farm up for the late game, or not really the late game, until at least he can reach parity with Neilma again, and then we can start to see him look for that signature aggression.
Yeah, about 1,000 gold lead already for PK based off that one little play, funny enough. And that is really, I'm not exactly sure where all that lead is really coming from. I mean, levels look around even, but where is all that gold? Sure, first bloods. Maybe it's a little bit of those Totomakus as well, although it's kind of early for those, if I'm honest, to really make that much of an impact. Just a better job of farming and picking up the gold a little bit more. So if anything, Fine OK has a slight lead over Scary D on this Osiris so far.
That matchup is actually deceptively strong for Baron Samedi. Osiris is a god that has to get up close, deal his damage in the face of the enemy, looking to spam out that sickle, find the auto attacks, and Baron is going to be sitting as far back as possible, throwing out that long-range root, getting his heals off, getting fantastic poke. If ganks come through, he's got CC immunity in his ultimate. It's not often that you could say that someone has a safe matchup into Osiris, but you could definitely make the argument that Fine OK on this Baron should be relatively uncontestable insofar as he doesn't move too far up the lane.
Yeah, closest to it, I would say. I mean, the Vivid Gaze, that first ability that Baron brings, it does reduce attack speed by 30% flat at level 1. And the likes of an Osiris, sure, he uses abilities, but he weaves those basics in between using those abilities. And if those basics can't connect because A, he's out of range, or B, they're just so slow, it's going to make such an impact, at least in terms of wave clear too, because you want to use some of those cleave attacks on Osiris to help keep that pressure going. So yeah, that's why we see a little bit more of the Baron. Panda now gonna get level 5 off this minion wave. Rotation is coming through from both Sam and Cuvo at the same time. Cuvo hunting for the pick, but Sam was waiting for this potential invade. Can Sam shut it down? Well, just showing face will be good enough for a second, but a big 4-on-4 starting up around the purple and red buff areas. Purple gonna go down, and now the red buff gonna be looked at, but Cuvo has to leap away.
Paul's still in the front line, able to move into this red buff as quickly as he needs to. Twig still has the jump available. He doesn't have to be worried about too much. Neil a little bit out of position here, but Twig takes too much damage. They're going to have to give up this red buff. PK, this aggression they've been able to keep up the entirety of the set to eke out these early game leads has been so strong. And they're leveraging it off the back of Neil's fantastic Yamoja play. finding the stuns, finding the damage on his own, able to sustain up his team. Zapman playing is incredibly safe. God as well means that if Neil decides to, he can rotate out a lane and not have to worry about Zap. He's got the CC immunity on his ultimate, he's got the dash for safety, and this early game Kali means that he doesn't have to worry about ganks out of the jungle too often, because we know when Kali's looking to find her ganks. It's after Kitten Size are online, after that Hasten, and right now nothing really is online except for a Light Blade and a Ninja's Tabai. So for now, PK is completely safe in this long lane.
Yeah, it looks like PK really trying to just find a lead through this lane so far. With your Mojo around there, wave clear will be a little bit quicker than that of the Rama and the RTO, and that's where they found that pressure around the purple-red area moments ago. So that's a real thing separating the two at the moment. Zapman needs a big game out of himself here, I feel. He won't be too happy with how the last two really went for him, especially up against Panda Cat's Rama. But realistically, I do think Rama's back in action. I'm surprised we didn't see it yesterday, if I'm honest, Smith. But it's good to see that the pros have recognized how much of a good, strong buff Rama received.
That's a stain in the early game. Really, Rama's always been one of the most powerful late game hunters. His stim's very strong. He's got one of the best attack speed stims in the game. He's got a slow on his auto attack as well as additional damage. And now with the buff, he's got CDR on his ultimate. He's got scaling damage on the arrow with his 3. And here's one that people don't like to talk about too much. You can now cancel the arrow on his 3, which is huge. It enables you to control when you want to use those astral arrows, when you want to really find your damage output. Now you can use that 3 as an escape and not be locked into losing a little bit of your burst.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Rolling Assault, though, cancelling that one out, realistically for me, you're going to have so many arrows now, I feel like, because the generation seems a bit better. But Blinking, pressure from Sam, as a greed of Neil Mar and Zapman could get punished. But Cuvo Fred was there too. Captain Twig dashed away. Pick off on Polar Bear Mike. Next on this could be Twig. Twig got the drums off, but the Rivers Rebuke's waiting. And as it crashes on down, Sam's going to fall. Zap gets a double, but Panda Cat, the man, is online again. He takes out Zap, looks for the pick on Neil, but a beautiful knocker from Cuvo, and pushes him back and says, no, you will not kill my support. 5 kills to 1 now for PK, and they strip away the red buff. If anything, if I'm fine, okay, I'm like, hey guys, how's it going on the rest of, you good? Because it don't look it.
Fine's got to be feeling pretty bad over there, especially considering how comfortable that lane's been for him as well. But that rotation path, the awareness from Paul and Cuvo to immediately back up. They were already disengaging when Neil was in trouble. Neil says, hey guys, help. Both teammates move up, start blocking out these autos, trying to make sure that Neil gets out alive. And they play it incredibly well. It's not often that you're able to stop aggression from a Ram, especially considering as those piercing autos. He doesn't find the 2 arrows that he needs. They miss them out. And then from there, Paul and Cuvo do a fantastic job of just finding the damage output, getting between him and Neil, and keeping their boy alive, turning that engagement, what could have been a little bit of a worse trade, into an incredibly clean engagement.
Beautiful from Cuvo Fred there. Just that cheeky little knockback on Sam, made sure the stun doesn't connect, separates himself. Ultimate used for ultimate in the solo lane. Scary D out of mana on this right-hand side too. With those ultimates both being down, Scary be okay though, for the most part. He does have teleport available. But Cuvo Fred rotating in to try and support. I don't think he realizes this is a trap being set for him now. 2 members behind him, cripple online. No leap in for Cuvo Fred. Instead he has to try and separate himself with the barrier, and does just that. Sam for Soccermemo has to leap away from the River's Rebuke, but that River's Rebuke is now going to crash down on Mike, and PK, who are getting trapped, have turned the tides of battle again. Another 2 kills for PK, and this game is getting comfortable for the boys in black and yellow.
Now nearly 3,000 golden lead. It's hard to talk about anything there except for Neilma's impeccable play. The rotation in, finding the double stun, separating the fight with your ultimate, forcing Kali to jump out, completely remove Sam from the fight, and then from there, PK turn it so cleanly onto Fine OK. PBM has a fantastic rotation in as well, but the damage output onto Cuvo wasn't quite enough to kill him outright, so the counter engage from PK was just on time to completely turn it around.
Myth, how do you kill this Nike, though? I mean, for me, that was a Carly and an RTO, right? Ganking a Nike, and I'm like, okay, cool. He's crippled, he can't move. But the addition of this barrier, this knockback that he's got, gave him enough separation to hold on there, and then separate himself to escape and survive again. It's so hard to pin down this Nike.
The ultimate essentially giving you a secondary health bar, Yamoja coming through to get those clutch heals. Nike might not be the actual target of aggression in the future, and I certainly don't think it should be. If Ghost Gaming want to get aggressive, you might as well look for Scary D in that situation. He's his ultimate's down, or you just don't engage on that side of the map, because Final K has been having just a fine time as is. He doesn't really need the help over there. He's been able to establish lane dominance. He's getting more minions into the tower. The tower over there already on half health for Scary D. You might as well shift your attention on Ghost Gaming towards either farming and waiting for this Kali to come online, get those Kins on, get those Hasten Katana, maybe even an Executioner so they can actually tank bust this Nike later on, or shift that aggression towards mid and make sure Paul doesn't get off to a fantastic start.
Well, Kins are up online early for Sam. He leaps in, looking for a stun on Scary D, but Scary D has that tether involved. Sustain will keep Ghost topped up there, but all the while, PK now looking to pressure around the left-hand side. They don't have Kivo Fred with them just yet, but once again, Zap and Panda going at it, and as soon as that happens, reinforcements arrive for PK. Panda Cat will take a tumble in the jungle. Good setup there from PK on that turnaround. Kivo Fred now going to trade out with Twig and Sam in towards this mid lane. Purple buff was stripped away. Red buff could be looked at soon from PK. I like the idea from PK though, Myth. They find advantages on the left. They rotate towards Scary D lane to try and shut down some of Fine OK. And just keep Ghost Gaming answering the call of where PK want to go.
And Panda right there uses his ultimate a little bit inefficiently. He should be able to see the entirety of the enemies coming in, but sitting in the sky for so long just gave PK enough time to rotate in and set up all that burst potential. Hailstorm under his feet. The first ability from Merlin as well. So much damage prevents them from being able to survive there, and immediately PK off that back of the pick, back up to Goldfree, take it away cleanly, don't overchase the engagement, and Twig has to use his ultimate for an attempted steal. Now that CC immunity, that teamfight ability, that's going to be down for a while. If PK want to, they've got 6,000 gold nearly in the lead already, only 12 minutes into the game. They can continue forcing fights around other neutral objectives, the mid tower, Pyromancer, whatever they want.
Yeah, 5k, 6k's on the left, Myth. That's experience, just as a heads up. But experience
you're right.
Still very important at this moment in time, because getting that level 12, getting that secondary relic, so important. You kind of alluded to that with Twig in the mid lane using that ultimate a little bit late. Just didn't have the vision and time, honestly, to try and get that off a little bit earlier. But him not having his secondary relic, he does have it now as he heads back to base. Gone for the shell option here yet again. How do you feel about the shells on these mid laners?
Generally, I like it, but normally when you see Shell picked up by mid, it's because there's a Vamana or an Erlang or someone who's going to be running you down in the back trying to look for auto attacks. Against Cuvo and Zap and Scary, like, yeah, you're going to be able to stop Scary's auto attacks, but he doesn't really care. They're pretty quick. He's not looking to burst you down, really. He's just looking to zone you out of the fight. I think forcing this Shell pickup out of sheer fear is already a net win for PK. Now, Ace is no longer online. Paul's damage is going to be able to just absolutely eviscerate him if he finds that backline dive.
Sam forces the ult on Zap. Snipes! Are they going to connect? 2 of the 3 did, but Zap will slip the noose. Meanwhile, mid, big pickup for Captain Twig there on Neil Marr, but Cuvo Fred answers back immediately. We were just talking about Twig's ultimate being down when it came up and got used straight away. And I think that could be an option, try and shut down Neil Marr a little bit more so. But Kivo Fred being there, he just keeps the pace going. His kill participation so far, 3, 0, and 5 in 14 minutes for the jungler.
He's been able to just make his stamp known every single place on the map. He's already got Brawlers online as well as Erendite, so his damage output is immense, especially considering this lead he already has over Sam. Sam only has the kin size online. He doesn't even have the second relic yet. He just now hits level 12. This Kali is off to an incredibly slow start, which is going to be crippling. The second PK decide to group up around an objective, this Kali should be a non-factor in the fight. He could move in, use the ultimate, force PK back for a moment, but on the tail end of that, if he doesn't get the reset, this Kali can't re-engage at any point.
Yeah, this is just a game for PK to just keep pushing on this lead as quickly and fast as they can and not allow Kali to really catch up back into the game. Currently 2 levels down to that of Cuvo Fred in the jungle. Solo laners still evened up, but Scary D starting to feel a bit more confident with how his team's doing. Extends a bit far forward, draws some attention. But that cost him his ultimate for relatively nothing there, I would say, around that right-hand side as he looked to steal those back camps. Zapman has a 3-level lead in the duo lane too. Ghost Gaming under a lot of pressure here. Mike trying to front line, so we're going to pop the ultimate very early on to push them back again. Cuvo Fred forced to use the ultimate defensively too, as now Fine OK looking to try and wrap into this matchup.
But PK is already disengaged fully. Fine goes deep, tries to find something, realizes the disengage has already come through, so he tries to take a little bit of farm. Scary D, not really going to let that happen, steals it away himself. Ghosts are doing a good job of keeping their heads above water right now, and they're just treading. They need to find some sort of foothold. Any engagement that they win, if they're able to find maybe a Gold Fury on the tail end of it or return some towers, they'll be right back in this game. But 5,000 gold at 15 minutes is crippling. It's going to be so hard for them to find something. My eyes are completely on Twig. It's on PBM to find this engagement. The damage output from Twig is still immense at this point, and he should be able to blow up just about anyone.
Neil under a bit of pressure, but Twig not going to go all the way in there. Worried about rotation, and there it is from Cuvo Fred. Forces the knock away again onto Twig, and the jump out of the fray. Neil Moss still under pressure. Charlie looking for the pick, but won't find it. Has to leap away. Twice now Ghost Gaming trying to pick Neil Marr, this time not so successful, and now the pressure's on again as the health bars from Ghost are relatively low. Fine OK and Scary D on the rotation too. Fury's up in 40 seconds as this red buff's being looked at here, and that just could cause some more problems for Ghost Gaming taking fight. Fine OK gonna look for some sustain for his teammates. Good play from Scary D and Cubo Fred jump into the back line and taking Twig out of the fight. Neil Marr and Zap get credit for 2 of the frontline kills, but Twig answers back to Scary D. Blinking from Cubo Fred drops the ultimate. Fine OK could die, but Cubo Fred bit off more than he can chew. He did at least take it a 1-for-1. Paul next on the list, he's tanking tower shots, letting Zap thread those arrows in, and a killing spree for Zapman just as the Fury's about to spawn. This is a good state of affairs for the Pittsburgh Knights.
And they're going to steal away the speed buff too. Come on, man. Sam's had a rough enough time as is. Getting that speed stone away is just a spit in the face. Paul plays that fight immensely well. The space created by PK means that no one on Ghost could really look at him. The only damage Paul really took from that engagement is from tanking the tier 1 tower as a Merlin. The entire time he's free casting on the enemies, finding the ice storms, finding the arcane stance abilities, everything that Paul needs to do there, he finds. And the follow-up from Zapman to finish off the kills that Paul wasn't quite able to land, it was just clean gameplay, clean team play from PK to just push that advantage. Unfortunately, they aren't able to finish off that tier 1 tower, but it's forced so low that it's not really going to be that much of a factor going forward. Now Gold Fury respawns. PK still has a very commanding lead. If they decide to go for it, that Primal Fury will make Pyromancer easier to burn, or Fire Giant if they so choose.
It's a really good point about Paul, because obviously, like, during these games so far, he's been kind of quiet for me in this game. Sure, he's been involved in 10 kills, though. He's just good damage. Talking about good damage, that's good onto Cubo Fred. No ultimate available, but he's duking out well enough, and his shield came up just in time. Oh my god, buy a lottery ticket tonight, Cubo Fred. Now Neil Marr going to get turned on by Ghost Gaming as well, but he's plenty healthy at this point in time to hold on to some of this damage output. PK gonna pull the Primal Fury now. They don't have Cubo Fred with them, but Ghost Gaming did invest their big secure attempt with Raijin already. Frontline Scary D and Neil Marr gonna zone away Ghost for a second. Sam trying to farm up mid lane and pressure that, but PK more focused around the Fury area. They're waiting for the right opportunity here, Myth. What would be do you reckon PK should actually just force it, or should they just wait for Ghost Gaming to give up the goose?
PK can look to start the Gold Fury and then immediately chase out the fight. Reset, heal up with this Yemoja, then pull the Gold Fury, chase out the fight. There's no real healing output on Ghost Gaming outside of combat, so if PK decides to, they can elongate these engagements, force Ghost Gaming to slowly get whittled away in a war of attrition and just continually pressure out the objective. And it seems like that seems to be the plan. Zapman just staring it down, letting this Primal Fury know that it's next.
Bad news is, though, Mike was just on the scene, but he's the only one around. Rama just based. Nice little bit of notice there from PK on the map state and situation. So PK take themselves a Primal Fury. Not the greatest Fury in the world at this stage, but if the game continues on, it will help them around this Fire Giant area, which have been going down relatively quick so far in this series between the two. Sam, still trying to catch up in farm, done a good job so far. He's now just 1 level behind that of Cuvo Fred in the jungle. Still needs to keep working on these builds. Pyromancer now going to fall too. PK just trying to get as much gold off this map as they can.
Panic Cat's on the opposite side of the map, and PK knows it. They saw him on the wave, so immediately they move towards that Fire Giant. They're thinking better of it. They know the engagement has to start. FinoK in some trouble.
Oh, in some trouble, he's already dead, Mifflin. There was no chance of him getting out of that. PK got a free pick, especially as you were saying with Panda being on that left-hand side. And now it's an opportunity for him to run down a tier 2 tower. Closest to it is Twig. They're going to have to surrender this one. A chance, though, in mid lane for Ghost Gaming to answer back a tier 1 tower there at least and open up the map in response. But it's not as good as a tier 2. The gold value is not the same. But this tier 2, however, could be a different story. PK instead, they're going to commit to an FG. This is on Twig and Mike to try and slow them down.
Yeah, best of luck. They're going to need a quick rotation for this Kali and Rom if they want any chance of stopping this Fire Giant. It's burning so fast.
PK get it, and at the end of the day, still we're going to see Twig and Mike fall. But Ghost Gaming heading for the Phoenix. Everyone basing out of PK here. Pings went down on the right-hand side. Phoenix, this isn't the worst-case scenario here. It might be worse, though, if Sam ends up falling down here. Good leap away. Blink not available for Cubo Fred. And Sam going to blink out, but it looks like Scary D might just catch him on the tail end and will do so. One sight and Sam falls. So for another 40 seconds, there's no Sam involved in farming, but they did get a Phoenix. I don't know how much that's really going to matter, though, Myth.
All it really does for Ghost now is force PK to push down the center of the map instead of going through the left-hand side. They've got so much time on this Kali respawn. I imagine we see a concerted effort on this mid-Phoenix. If they're able to return it, that means that there's going to be parity in the waves, and PK can just resume doing what they were doing, which is absolutely dominating the map.
Well, relic situations, okay, good pull in from FinoK. Takes a lot of Neilmar's health, but he's stayed up so nicely. Scary D and Zapman, though, explode 2 members. FinoK and Panda Cat off the map again. Middle Phoenix will fall down, and you know what? We might just go in for another pre-23 minute end. Pittsburgh Knights are gonna beat Ghost Gaming. Welcome to the Pro League, Ghost. Might as well start with Rival if this is how it's gonna be.
The curse is broken? I don't think so. Sam falls again. PBM, the last one standing. PK don't care. They might go for the kill to just pad out that slash line, but the Titan is certainly on everyone's brain. It's going to burn away quickly. Clean play. PK, convincing game 1, less so game 2. Game 3, third burst, same as the first. They immediately turn it around, get an early lead, and run with it the entirety of the time. It's all Neilma. I'm giving 100% credit to Neilma. His play, rotating through mid, controlling space, able to separate team fights, the sustain that he brought, it crippled Ghost.
Well, last time we saw these guys play was in week 3. And if I'm honest, Ghost won that 2-1, and PK have just tied it up at 2-1. Maybe the next time we see these two teams play, we'll be in the playoffs, maybe in the finals again. Maybe we'll get a rematch at Worlds, but these two always go at it hard, and it's great fun to watch. Let's get it over to the desk to break down that game.
Well, the Knights look good getting wins, and what better way for you to look good at home than maybe some exclusive skins in-game. So go ahead and grab up the Final Boss Battle Pass. You'll get a ton of content, 200 gems, and 4 exclusive skins, including Elder Jin Baba Yaga, the Shadow Guan Yu, the Legion Hades, and the Frost Gorgon Medusa. Do you have what it takes to complete each level and defeat the bosses? Test your might in the Final Boss Battle Pass. And the final boss, at least of the SPL so far, has been Ghost Gaming. And, well, a couple of teams have been able to take those wins no problem. They were able to at least farm up, get their late game gear, and they've been coming into it this one. Aggro, I mean, the Knights, I literally left one note for myself as the game ended, and that's just they started off the game in the driver's seat. And that kind of is where it ended.
Never left it, for sure. I think that Ghost just came in with a very different idea of how this game was going to go compared to games 1 and 2. When games 1 and 2 were both really, really quick, you know, less than 30-minute, convincing one-sided matches, Kali is not really what you want in those types of games. And so I think that Ghost came into this game trying to slow down the pace, be a little bit more methodical, take it late game because their draft should be favored there, and they just never got a shot to do it. Panda Cat, who really ran games 1 and 2 in this duo lane, got camped heavily, and Zap really did a great job of punishing him. Zap had a much stronger game on this Hachiman, and an impressive performance from him in really the entirety of PK's duo lane, because Neil, as Mifflin said, just looked absolutely phenomenal all day long on this Yemoja. The big difference here is that Panda never really got the ball rolling nearly as much as he had up until that point, and ultimately wasn't able to be that late game stopgap to try and take Ghost into the late game with his phenomenal Rom and Kali together. That just never really materialized, and that's why I'm just kind of surprised that that's how Ghost wanted to play this game, with how one-sided the games were up until Game 3.
Well, you got to see Knights, I would say, put on a showcase for game number 3 there. A lot of solid control, almost enough at the end there to try and steal that Fire Giant away, but the split between the Phoenix Call and the FG defense just kind of fell through their hands there. Knights finally take this one 2-1 here. That gives us an interesting start to the day. A nice little, well, I want to say lengthy one, but realistically, it's not that much longer than some of the 2-0s that we've had in the past. But now we get to move forward looking at, Space Station Gaming, looking at Radiance, another big matchups that are going to come through. And if Space Station win this one, they are solidified at first. If they lose that one, man, we're at a 3-way tie at the top.
I mean, after their loss to them last week, Zapman tweeted that he thought Space Station was the team to beat going into playoffs. Playoffs only 2 more weeks away, and he might be right. Space Station can solidify themselves as the team to beat with a win here later on today, but still feel like that you never really know what's going to happen in the SPL these days. It really feels like a toss-up just about every single time, and today the coin did not land in Ghost Gaming's favor, to say the least. That was a pretty convincing Game 3.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how they adapt going in. I think week to week it is kind of the biggest question. A lot of these teams, like you said, it's almost a coin flip every single time you come into it. And the fan vote almost always ends up reflecting that, because sometimes it's like, hey, this one was 95-5, I believe, in favor of the Knights.
Yeah.
So, hey, to the 5% of you that got the vote right, congratulations. I hope you enjoy your points. But I know some people who are probably going to enjoy it just a little bit more than you, and that is the Knights themselves taking this win. We actually have Cuvo Fred, a.k.a. Nike, standing by for an interview.
We do indeed. Cuvo Fred, how you doing, buddy? How's things?
Hey, what's up? I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. I'm doing absolutely great, that's what I said.
Are you a Nike main now? Is that what I'm seeing? Like, I've seen you go through the Cabraca main, phase of your career. Is it Nike all the way now for you?
I mean, after seeing Sinus debut with the Obey, I see the Nike power, and I'm just trying to cosplay out here. That's all I do.
So tell me a little bit about how important you feel that set was, taking on Ghost Gaming there. I mean, they beat you earlier on in the season. This has legitimately squared it back up again. Like, how do you feel about that performance? Do you think that was the best you guys have shown so far? What was it that was a real changer for you?
I think today we played some really good SMITE, and we played the lead Super Bowl where we didn't do mistakes as often as we would have done in other sets previously. I remember the first set against Rival, we kind of threw some of the games a little bit. And I just really enjoy that we have this win against these guys, because they're definitely a super strong team, and just beating a top tier team this close to MSI is just a super huge mental boost for us, for sure.
I bet it was. How's it been, actually? I want to ask you about being around all these North American kids now. You've been around them for about 8 weeks or so now. Like, is it a different environment than playing with EU guys as well, or is it just business as usual?
I mean, right now with the quarantine and all that stuff, like, it's definitely a bit more like you up and down of each other, all day, kind of like we don't really do anything but practice on doing like our things back in the house here, but I'm enjoying it a lot, and it's a bit different from last year, but I'm liking it, so.
Good to hear. Final question for you before I let you go, right? Where do you think you're going to finish in the standings this year, at least in Phase 1?
I think we have 2 or 3 matches left, and I don't really care too much where we end, but I just want to come in with 2 MSI and knowing we can play some good SMITE, so that's my goal from now on.
Well, that was a good performance today, Cuvo.
Like Thank you.
3rd, 4th? Okay, yeah. If you'll take it, I guess the fans at home will too. Thanks so much for the interview, Cuvo. Good luck on the rest of the tournament. We'll be back after the break with more SPF.